get this thing going here. And I don't have the excuse. I have a new phone, but that's a poor excuse. I'm just pretty poor at technology type stuff. So
appreciate us too. We've done 40
patience.
of these. We still don't know what we're doing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We still mess it up.
We just wing it. We don't edit them. We just throw it out there. You get what you get.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. There you go. And I'm assuming if we need to pause, right, stretch break, restroom break, and that kind of good stuff, if any of us need it, right, we'll just say so. We'll just speak up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good, cool. All right, appreciate y'all.
Yeah, we're fortunate enough to have a bathroom like 15 feet from us.
There you go.
We put one in our garage when we just before we had our first event, and it actually wound up being one of the most popular features of the event.
Sure.
Several of the athletes showed up and said, "Whoa, you got a bathroom right here in the garage. This is fantastic."
Yeah. It was true. It's true. So what am I looking at behind y'all? What's that back there?
It's just a wall of some grip stuff
and a punching bag. And
yep.
Is this
wing chun right there, and
then
punching bag. Tons of grip stuff.
Okay.
1-inch trainers, some other things.
So like when we watch the videos and stuff, a lot of it's taking place right there in that same locale?
Yep.
Yeah, we hang out right here in the garage. We do our interviews too.
Yeah, we got everything you can imagine in this micro garage. We got all our Atlas stones over here. We have a Hercules hold set up. I mean, it's crazy.
Wow. How long is it taking y'all to get to that, like to accumulate to that point where you have all that stuff?
We just started at the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh,
we had a bench and some weights from high school, and then we decided we wanted to get some more stuff and have fun with it.
We made a lot of the stuff ourselves, so
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean we've heard it before, but I said it before, but so many things changed, right, with the pandemic. So
yeah.
I was in the same kind of spot, I can't even, I don't even know where to begin. It seemed like everything was everything was going, and then all of a sudden everything shut down. So yeah, I'm glad to hear y'all were able to make it work for you and get a space going, a good training space.
Yeah, that's kind of why we started the whole podcast and everything, was to talk to others about how we could build our garage gym, and we did it during we built it up during this whole couch potato thing. So we got ideas from everybody we talked to, and that was part of the idea. Was we would get those ideas from people that are doing it and then share it with people. The first guy we had come over here, Taylor, was our very first guest. He has an obstacle course race set up in his garage. So he's swinging from implements around that he has attached to his rafters and whatever, just odd implements.
Wow.
And he does his own little in his garage races on his obstacle courses, and yeah.
And how did y'all know him? Did you work with him, or you?
Weirdest thing is I actually met him completely on a whim. I was coming home from work after a snowstorm one day and picked up somebody's chain link in my tire. So I was on the side of the road changing a tire in the pissing rain, and he stops and pulls up beside me and asks if I want some help. And we were chit-chatting a little bit, grabbed his number, and hung out a couple times with him, and then started training with him a few times.
Wow, that's a great story. That's a great story.
That's how I met Taylor.
That's the kind of person he is. He helps somebody else, and then
he's a good dude.
It off.
He's a really good dude. Fantastic. I like him.
Cool.
So yeah,
so where's it y'all living right now? Then you said snow. You mentioned snow and stuff.
We we live in Vancouver, Washington, so we're in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then y'all didn't. I thought I remember reading or hearing about y'all grew up somewhere like was it like Gilroy or somewhere like that, or one of y'all?
That's where he was born. I was born in Stockton.
Yep.
So
Okay. Oh, very, very interesting.
Yeah, moved up to the Northwest when we were pretty young, and we've lived up here for quite a while. We're like 10 minutes north of Portland.
Okay. We've only been there once to Portland on vacation for a week, but it was like a love at first sight kind of thing, so I've never been to where y'all are right now, but that part of the country is really nice.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. We're an extension of Portland.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got all the different kinds of. The food scene is like one of the best in the whole world, and you got some of the best coffee in the entire world, right? And
yeah.
You got a lot of rain and
a lot of green.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
take it doesn't take long to travel to see mountains, the ocean, rivers,
Yeah,
valleys,
mountains,
everything.
ocean.
I mean, we did a 4-hour drive through Texas recently to
And all I
go
saw
from
was nothing.
Oh yeah, I
Dallas
can't
to
wait to hear about
Austin,
that. I can't
and
wait to hear about that. Okay.
we saw nothing.
Yeah, we
There's
saw oil
like
fields and nothing.
Wow.
nothing.
Wow.
Minus flat.
Wow.
You could
Wow.
drive, half that time here and go from the mountain to the beach, and I'm like,
Yeah, you go literally
This is
from the
crazy.
mountains to the beach to the Olympic Peninsula woods, and then you could be in like a lush land of greenery.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
Like,
gosh.
wow, it's amazing.
So I couldn't believe how much open space. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long were you all there in Texas for? A whole week or a few days?
We
or
were
what?
there 4 days. We decided
4
to fly
days,
in
okay.
early for competition. Got there actually Thursday morning. Went and toured
Okay.
AT&T Stadium, hung out, and then Adam actually found out that we were in town. So he's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing in Texas already? It's only Thursday." And we're like, "Oh, we're just hanging out tours." Then he's like, "Come over for dinner."
Oh, so cool. So
So
cool.
we hung out with Adam on Thursday. By the way, he did tell us to make sure he said hi. So
Oh,
Yeah.
he's great. I've only gotten to be around him one time, and it was in Finland of all places.
yeah,
I don't
That's what he was
know if
saying.
yeah,
he
it was
tells
kind
us
of
all
weird,
kinds of stories from that
We're
Finland trip.
all the way over there. And that's when we meet, for the first
Yeah.
time. But yeah, he's really easy to get along with too. And of course, he's been around for a long time. I don't know how old he is. Did he mention how old he is?
I think he's
He
only
doesn't
like
seem that old.
38.
Yeah.
Oh, so he just got started really young then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. He must have been in his teens or early 20s or something.
He was doing grip
some of this stuff.
when he was in the military. So like 18, 19 years old is
Yeah.
when he started doing grip.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense then.
So
That
he's
makes
been in it
sense.
about 20 years now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I can remember hearing about him like long time ago. So I see. That makes sense. And
Yeah.
then you all got to meet Tanner too, right? And who
Yep.
else
Yeah,
was out
Tanner
there?
was there.
Okay.
Yeah, Tanner's a monster, man. He's going to be the future of grip sport for sure.
Oh, it's really, really frightening, right? You think some of this stuff, I mean, we have these phrases like a whole nother level, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like big Carl Myers
Yeah.
and Tanner, and there's some of these folks that just you have a certain conception about what you can do, and then you see what these folks are doing, and it's just whole nother level.
And you'd
But
think he'd
we
be
need
this
that,
like
though. We need
intense monster guy. No, he's just this really calm, gentle dude that just walks up and just lifts insane weights.
Yeah.
Analyzes the hell out of every single thing that he's doing before he does it,
Yep.
and then lifts
Uh-huh.
it. It's like, all right.
And I don't know a whole lot about Tanner. I know like he started. Y'all could probably correct me, but didn't he start off in climbing and he did all that through high school and stuff, right? And
Yeah,
then
he
found
was
he likes
climber at
grip
first.
even more, but he probably still does some climbing, doesn't he?
Yeah, he was
Or-
like 80 kilos when he started in grip, so he was still the weight like he could do a ton of climbing. I'm sure at his weight now
Okay.
he doesn't do as much of it, but he did
Okay.
like a one-handed golden potato pull-up while.
Yeah, I
climbing
saw
there,
that.
you
I
know?
saw that.
Yeah.
Okay.
He
Is that,
actually
like,
said he
is that way
missed
beyond what
climbing, so
anyone's
I don't
done
think
so
he does
far?
it much anymore.
Wait, say that again. Sorry. what
He
was
said
that?
he misses climbing, so I don't think he does
Oh,
climbing
maybe he's not
anymore,
doing
actually.
as much. Okay.
So it's kind of,
Well, he knew that I was trying to start doing a little bit of calisthenics, and he was telling me when he was on a climbing team, they did a lot of this kind of stuff, like the levers or whatever they're called, all that kind of stuff, front levers and stuff. And so he had some tips for me, but his tips were like 12 steps ahead of where I was. So like,
Yeah.
maybe one day I can try your tips. I appreciate it. But and then Adam, what was that thing that he posted not too long ago? Adam Glasser, he was doing like a skin the cat or something, but he was doing it like on a thin pinch or something. Did y'all
Yep.
see that? It was
Yeah,
from
he
a
does
few
that
years
crazy
back,
stuff.
right? But he reposted it. Yeah, so him too. Those two. But we need that, I think, inspire us all. So
Yeah, he does like L-sit pull-ups on like, pinch blocks.
uh-huh.
You're just going, come on, man.
And
It's
the
crazy.
ability and the creativity too, right? Just to think of that, to try it. Yeah, I think.
and what's cool is they're not like super tiny guys doing it either. I mean, Adam's probably 200, 215.
Yep.
About
Yeah.
6'2". So
Yeah. No, I
not a
know.
little tiny guy.
No, that's what. We need to see more of that kind of stuff. I mean, that's where I'm coming from, and that's one of the big reasons why I'm working with that team, my team SAS, the team of older women lifters that I have. And I know y'all work from you work with people from all different walks of life, all different age groups, all different abilities, and it's the same kind of concept, you know, wanting to show people what other people can do, and so they don't just think like it's got to be a certain type of person, whether it be size or age or gender or whatever, you know.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can do more, right? We can all do more and encourage other people to do more. So
yeah, that's why back the very first person we reached out to when we started doing our online interviews was Joy Brown.
oh yeah.
We wanted specifically to get her, you know, opinions about working out in older age, and you know.
So is her interview still out there? Is it
Yeah,
still up
absolutely.
on your all's website? Okay, I'm gonna write it down so I don't forget, because I like Joy an awful lot. I'm gonna go hear what she has to
Joy's
say.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's from like what, Connecticut or somewhere originally, right? And she's in Canada now.
I don't know where she was originally, but I know she's way up in snow country now.
Yeah, she's in Saskatoon, Canada right now, and probably shoveling her driveway right now.
Yeah. And another person creative too. She did. Did you see that one Forum Friday where she had her dog? She's like holding her dog and hitting that shot with the forearms and stuff. I was like, right on.
Yeah, I know she pinches turkeys come Thanksgiving time. So
yeah,
she's a pretty creative lady for sure.
At the supermarket, getting a grip workout at the supermarket.
So Betsy, who I've been working with for quite a while, is 82 now, and every time she comes back from Costco, she always has a story, because one of the things she picks up is a 40-pound bag of kitty litter, and inevitably, whenever she goes to that aisle to get it, other people come around. It could be men, women, younger, whatever, but they always assume, because they look at her and they say, okay, here's an older woman. She must be weak. She must need help. And they come rushing over trying to help her. And she just kind of looks at them, and, you know, she's polite and stuff, but she just grabs it, you know, throws it over her shoulder and stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm with you.
And we love just talking to the super elite athletes too, because you find out how normal they are, and they all started somewhere, and they were just as crappy as we were, if not worse.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And they probably enjoy talking about all this stuff, right? And I would think. Yeah.
There's so many. I mean, in this community, it's just full of nice people. It's just been a wonderful thing to discover and see that, you know, you could talk to pretty much anybody and they're going to be the nicest can be.
I totally agree. And people that don't know about it, like, they might think we're exaggerating, but it totally seems true. And y'all know Bill Weiss out of LA, California, and he's worked with Ode Haugen for a long time. And Bill was talking about, compared to so many other sports and he's been involved with, he said exactly what you were saying. He was like, you know, we have competition, of course, and people want to do well, but the camaraderie is probably a bigger part of it than the competition part. And he just likes how everybody tries to help each other and cheers. I mean, loudly cheers for each other, you know, like it's their kid or something. They're just like screaming, you know, and somebody they might have just met, you know, and they want them to get that lift, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think a lot of things are kind of coming together in grip sport. You know, it's kind of a young sport, but now everybody's sort of figuring out how to train. And with the camaraderie, everybody's willing to share more knowledge. If you got into grip sport 15 years ago, you'd have all kinds of different stories about how people train, but now it's starting to come together, and, you know, people have the same lifts in mind and the same, you know, goals to try to get big axle or big Saxon lift or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
I think you can learn a lot more from the people that are doing it now.
I mean, it's kind of like an interesting time, I think. I'm just kind of building off your comments. I totally agree. But like, it's growing a lot. But at the same time, the total size of the community is relatively small, right, compared to other ones. So you get a lot of new ideas and fresh blood and new competitors, but at the same time, it still feels small enough that you can talk to people and get to know people. And
exactly.
No, I totally agree.
Talk to the Michael Jordans of this sport, you know, and that's pretty cool. You can't normally do that.
No, good point.
It's like you going to an NFL combine workout to try to make the team, and we're down here in middle school football trying to play, and it's not like, come on, guys, hurry up, you're messing with us. You know, we go to the competition, and they're like, who cares if you're lifting 80 pounds less than us, you know? They're excited. Let me show you how to do this better.
No,
you know, you're strong. Let's get it. Let's get a PR. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the size of the community, and then the fact that most of us do it because we enjoy it. Like, it's, I mean, some of us, like I would say myself included, because my day job, so to speak, is strength coach. But for a lot of us, it's just about the, you know, the love, the passion, is a big part of our life. It's not monetized. It's not a job per se. And so with some of these other, you know, pro athletes, I mean, doesn't excuse them being a jerk and not talking to somebody, not giving them some tips. But I just think their mind is in a different place. They're thinking about it differently, you know. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. I kind of think
absolutely does.
off the top of my head, but you know.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the sports, you know, with fresh blood coming in and good ideas coming in, it'll keep the veterans excited, because I was just talking to Adam earlier today, and he was saying, yeah, there's been some amazing dudes in grip that aren't around anymore just because they got bored with the sport, or, you know, just there was nothing, you know, nothing to challenge them anymore.
Yeah, and maybe some of them will wander back too.
That'd
right?
be cool. Right?
Yeah. I think, you know, I think some of them are out there and they're keeping tabs on what we're doing, and if they like what they see, they might be a little bit more encouraged to try it. I was thinking of, I mean, I could be totally wrong. Do y'all follow Joel Dirks from Minnesota on Instagram?
Yeah.
He actually has the golden potato world record.
Oh, okay. Because I kind of felt, I could be totally wrong, but I kind of felt like the last 5 years or so, he started doing more and more grip. And I thought maybe for a while he had gone on to focus on other strength sports. And maybe he was somebody that started getting more excited about it, but maybe he never stopped. Maybe he kept on doing it. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I think he did Kong last year, and he was in the top 10. So he hasn't quit. He hasn't quit it. Definitely.
Okay.
It'd be exciting to see, you know, where he winds up this year and where he pushes it. He's a monster, man. Very strong dude.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? Because I was thinking this morning about how a lot of it in grip seems to, gosh, how do we want to put this? Okay, so like a big part of it is the products themselves, right? The tools, the toys themselves, and y'all are another example of people that are creating new things for us to try and for us to do. And so one of the things I always wonder about is like, how much more new things can we have? Is it just like always more new things is better because it gets people excited and gets you something new to try? Or is it also good to like try to kind of take a step back and try to do things that you can just with equipment that's available? Because I'm thinking about people that are new and thinking about trying to do a little grip training. And some of them, they might be thinking, God, you know, if I got to buy this specialty equipment and buy that and acquire that, it might be a barrier to them getting started.
No, absolutely.
You know, whereas if they can just figure out ways to use the regular stuff, so to speak, that they have, like a barbell or a plate or something, right? And maybe kind of like get started in grip. I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it at that. See, what do you all think about this? You think it's an interesting question? Not really.
Yeah. So we think that the potato is sort of like a bridge, implement, and sort of that it will bridge people over from their sport into grip if they wanted to try something different. Okay. Because it's funky and it's not, you don't take it really serious because it's a potato. You know, it's just silly. It makes people laugh. But also at the same point, like climbers like it because it's concrete, so it's got that, you know, rock feel to it. Okay, and it's a small ledge, so you get OCR guys that like it because they can swing from it and do pull-ups from it and whatever. So the obstacle course racers like it. And then oddly, strongmen love it because it's like a rock. It's like a hand rock. So the stone lifters think, oh, this is cool. It's like a stone from my hand. I got to figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
So it turns out that people from different sports wind up liking it. And then once they're into it, once they, you know, get the itch for grip, we try to turn them on to like arm lifting, where you only have like 4 lifts to train for, only a little bit of equipment to buy. It's not super expensive. You can do it in your garage, you know, because
so
you can get lost. Like, I mean, if you look at our wall, there's so much junk up there. You can get lost in all the grip implements that are out there.
I know. Those truly. And sometimes
and we were shocked. We went to Adam Glasses and we said, what the heck? We have more grip junk than you do. And he goes, you don't need all that stuff. You just need this, and that. And I'm like,
Once he gets you in a league,
he's the best in the world, and he's telling us you only need 6 things.
He's the old school then. That's what we might, and that maybe that's like discriminatory to say that, but like I do think there's a mentality like of, you know, like I don't know. It's kind of like the survivalist, the frontiers person, the Jeremiah Johnson. You know, I want to make do with what I have, and I want to make the most of what I have. You know, but then at the same time, it is very exciting to see all these different things and to try these different things. And I was thinking about when you were talking about the potato and how it appeals to all these different groups, And it was reminding me, we should talk about probably in the 70s or 80s, like the gateway drugs, but this is like a good gateway drug, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
It's getting them hooked, and then they want to do other things. They want to do
Exactly.
more, you know? Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
I think to touch on your point too is
Uh-huh.
once you get to an elite level, you really kind of have weeded out what you don't need, and then you kind of specialize in whatever sport you're doing. And grip sport, you know, there's 4 or 5 implements that you must have that you're going to do that's going to get you strong all the way around. You don't need to dabble in the 40 to 50, especially if you're just starting out. Now there's so much information, you can get help and be like, oh, it's not going to cost me thousands of dollars. I really only need a few things. And
That
I've
is a
referenced that
huge,
to bowling too, because new
yeah,
technology in bowling's ridiculous. There's so many different types of balls and all kinds of crap. People will have like 30 bowling balls, and you don't
right,
need 30 bowling balls. You need
right,
4.
right. Okay, so I want to say in this case, there's the phrase that my spouse and I picked up this sometime this year, and we say both things are true. You know, so what I want to say here is, like, on the one hand, doesn't matter if we're talking about grip. I love the analogy of bowling too. I love bowling, and I'm connecting with you on a lot of levels there. But I think both things are true. So in other words, like, you could get by with less and less and learn how to use what you have more and more.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is about your time, your experience. Adam Glass was one of the folks that used to talk about when a lot of newcomers will get really technical and try to talk about all these different aspects of technique and form. And I remember he used to tell them, it's not technique, it's time. It's how long you've been doing this for, you know, and you're going to learn it, you're going to figure it out. So I think on the one hand, that's true. But I think on the other hand, like, having more technologies or having new methodologies, whether it be ways of training or periodization or whatever, could be helpful too, you know? So I kind of, I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong. I think it's actually useful to say both things are true. And maybe it depends on what we're talking about. But I think it's a huge issue that you're raising about that. Um,
Yeah, I think the technique.
Sorry, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
The technique's very motivating when you learn it, you know.
Yeah.
Like I was bending nails wrong, and then when I learned the technique, I was able to smash a lot bigger nails, and it motivated me to train harder. Same thing with tearing cards. You know, you have to get the right technique to tear a deck of cards, and then once you have it, it motivates you to want to do more.
Well, how did you learn? Did you learn from, like, watching other people's videos?
No, interviewing these people. We got them through.
And then they would talk
chatting
about it.
with
And
people. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a couple. We reached out to a couple people that are really good at card tearing and made sure they showed us, on video exactly how they make the little S bend and how they do all the tricks that you normally wouldn't find out. Because
so you feel like on your own it would have taken you forever. Maybe you wouldn't have stumbled upon them at all. But
probably because there's almost nobody that shares it, because there's still traveling strongmen that make money off of doing that stuff.
Yeah.
So there's still a part of this that is it's somebody's career.
Yeah. The secrets, right? The trade secrets.
Magician.
Exactly.
Yeah, like the chef that won't give you the recipe, and a lot of others like, no, I want more people to make it and share the love, and everybody love my sauce. And then some people are like, no, I guard it with my whatever,
Yeah, I'm taking this to the grave,
Yeah, exactly.
We're like that masked magician guy on TV that exploits all those magician secrets and how they do tricks.
Yeah. So I mean, full disclosure, so I'm an anarchist, so I believe in this whole thing about open source and sharing information, and that's where I stand. That's the camp that I'm in. I think we should share. And one of my favorite sayings that comes from anarchism is, we're all students, we're all teachers, because we do learn from everybody else some of the time, and we do teach pretty much everybody else some of the time too. So I would like to see more of that sharing, but I hear exactly I understand what you're saying. Some people are not coming from that position. They're like, I got to guard this. I got to guard this if I want to keep it. Yeah, I just don't happen to share that point of view, but I understand it, I think.
Yeah. Now we want to exploit it all, so we're totally with you. And let's get all the secrets and share it all, so everybody has the same advantage and the same training techniques.
Yeah, and you're going to put your own spin on it, right? And you got all your own biology and genetics and biophysics, the way you're built and the way you're psychologically oriented, and the strengths and weaknesses you have in terms of your training and your discipline. All these things are going to bear on it anyway. So even if you start off with the same raw material, it's going to end up looking different by the time you're done.
Yep.
And it's not like any of these guys are like, the coach for an award-winning NFL team or something like that. It's not like we have 3 Super Bowls here under our belts and we got secrets to freaking hold on to. No, our secrets aren't doing things like that. They're just making our hands a little bit more efficient at holding this weird shaped thing.
Yeah, and I gotta say that was pretty cool, you know, because but one of the things that I mean, I could go on and on about all the things I've been fortunate about, but one of the things I've been really fortunate about is when we got to travel and we got to meet people from other countries, and some of them were from places, you know, like Russia, and obviously we have this shared history with the Cold War and all this. It was so cool to see everybody just jumping right in, like in the warm-up room and giving each other tips. And of course, we didn't speak the same language, but a lot of this stuff is kind of universal, where you can gesture and you can point and you can do things. And it did, like we were saying kind of earlier, you know, part of it is that if there's camaraderie, it's not so much competition, but part of it is that other question about the secrets, trade secrets and stuff. And there didn't seem to be as much of that. And I don't think it's not just like in our small circles, you know, something like you're talking about the Instagram world or Armlifting USA or something, but even in the broader grip stage, you know, they seem to have that same kind of spirit. So that was really cool. That was really something. Of course, there are differences, but that's one of the common ground points that I saw.
That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Speaking of the community, you did get a couple fan questions come in. So I'm going to throw those at you.
Yeah.
You do a lot of training with 3 and 4 inch axles. Do you feel like that transfers over to the 2 inch axle pretty well?
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
I mean, so we have a longer version of the answer. We have a short version of the answer, and this is kind of like along the lines where y'all are talking about how you might be able to have a few events, and you know, like whether there's carryover. Like I feel like, I guess what I would say is I feel like this is an open question. Currently, I feel like it's a really open question, and we don't really know because. So trying to think how to put this. And something like physiology, like in general in exercise physiology, we talk about specificity, and we talk about something like strength in general and how specific it is. And we adapt to very specific kinds of activities and things that we do. And so the short response is we can get better at doing these things, but we don't necessarily get better at these other things that you might think are related because we're just getting better at the thing we're doing. But then in practice, a lot of us notice that there does seem to be some kind of carryover. And you know, we would like to kind of think that we don't have to try to train everything, because logistically, how can you possibly train everything you might want to train? So we hope that there's some carryover. And then when you start thinking about how different individuals, different bodies react to this stuff, I think it's even becomes more of a wild card. So, you know, my tendency is to generally say that you just get better whatever you train on. So if you want to get better at 2 inch axle, you got to train on 2 inch axle. I don't think that there's much carryover between even something like a 2.5 inch axle to the 2 inch, or 3 or 4, certainly not. But I would say the same thing about thumbless and using thumbs, or snatch grip versus like a close grip, you know, that's more like a sumo style that some people do. You know, that's how specific that I think the strength can be. Now, having said that, if you find that you're reaching some plateaus or something that looks like it's headed towards a plateau and you don't get to that plateau, I think it is really good to switch it up and do something that's really different. Whether that be something as simple as, you know, doing thumbless work instead of thumbs, or pulling conventional instead of sumo, or switching to a 3 inch if you have access instead of a 2 inch, you know, something like this to change up your training. But I don't think there's a lot of direct carryover. I don't think there is, in my opinion. But I do think that we're still kind of searching for those answers. So I guess I disagree a lot, maybe, with what you were saying earlier, because didn't you say you thought like we're having more and more answers to some of these questions? Did I understand you right when you were saying that?
Yeah, I think that's true. We are coming up with more answers on how to train for the contest, but you're right, like on how to train just to overall get stronger and grip, there's still a lot of questions there.
Yeah, and so if you know, I think I love to talk to everybody and get everybody's ideas, like we were saying about the all students, all teachers thing. And so that's one of the cool things about grip, is not only do people want to talk about it, but I find the more people I talk to, the more different opinions that I hear.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of weigh them, and you can try these things out yourself, you know what I mean, and see what seems to work for you. But that's a moving target too, because what works for you today may not work for you 3 or 4 or 6 months down the line.
Exactly.
Right?
I think it goes with the old adage too, though. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Oh, well said. Well said.
Yep.
That's it. That's just it. Yeah. Yeah. And
The other question.
yo, please
go ahead.
Go ahead. Will you repeat that first question? Because I don't want to gloss over it too quickly unless we have a zillion.
3 or 4 inch axle or 3 and 4 inch bar transfers over to axle well. That was the question.
So I guess so. I guess one question that I would have is a question for the question. Because I don't know if y'all are like me, but like I like to think of a lot of different aspects to training. And one of the things is, of course, things like what are your numbers doing? Are your numbers going up? But as we know, numbers are not just like the 1 RM. It could be something like, doing more reps at a comfortable weight, or doing a longer hold at a comfortable weight, or a slightly heavier weight for the same amount of hold, or resting less between sets, but being able to do more volume or whatever, right? There's a lot of ways, even just empirically, to look at that kind of progress. But the other thing is there's all these other aspects to the training. Like when you train on these bars that are super, super huge, and you start training on ones that are kind of bigger and kind of medium sized, they can feel really, really small, which can be good or bad, right? Because if you found them difficult because they seem too big, that could be a benefit. If you kind of start to like how your hand flattens out and the surface contact on the bigger bar, and you switch to some of these smaller ones, it can feel uncomfortable. Almost the way it does when you go from a 2 inch axle to bar. You ever feel like it's biting into your hands and stuff? Yeah. So like on a level of like aesthetic and enjoyment, and how much physically do you get back feedback, I think there is like carryover benefits like that, things you might enjoy about flip-flopping back and forth between a 3 and a 2 inch or something. But if what they mean is like lifting on the 3 inch and your numbers start going up on the 2 because it's easier or something, I would say I don't think so. I don't think that's the case. I don't know if I've helped out or made that more confusing.
No, I think that makes perfect sense.
Oh, okay.
The other question you got was, do you train for forearm size?
I was gonna jokingly say doesn't everybody, but do I train for forearm size? Okay, I'm gonna answer this in a number of different ways. I would if I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like I don't have like any kind of objection, like a ethical, moral objection. I think there's nothing wrong with if you like having bigger forearms, if you want to have bigger forearms, go for it, train for that. So I would certainly do it. Maybe I'm just too lazy or not organized enough, or I haven't done it. But I don't personally, but I think it's a really nice side effect, and I think it happens even if you don't even want it to. So let's say for those people that want to be smaller and just strong as hell, and they're not interested in aesthetically what a bigger body looks like, or they think a bigger body is cumbersome in daily life, it gets in your way or whatever. I think that, forearm size, general hypertrophy, getting bigger muscles, I think it does happen a lot of times, even when you're not planning to do that. And I think the reason that it happens a lot with grip is because, I don't know if this has been your all's experience, but for a lot of us, we find that to improve, we have to do more and more and more volume.
Yeah.
And the more sets and reps that we do, and the more time and attention, so to speak, I think it just contributes to the precursory factors that end up affecting the hypertrophy and the muscle growing. So even if you don't intentionally set out originally to get bigger forearms, I think it's going to probably happen. So all that is to say, it may be a moot point anyway. You know what I mean? You can think about whether or not you want to or you intend to, but it might just happen anyway.
I think training armlifting, for sure, you're going to get bigger forearms. It's going to happen. There's no way.
I think so
around it.
too. I think so too. And your wrists might get bigger, and I don't know what that's going to do in terms of your, and I swear, and people talk about this, Jokebug was talking about this a couple of years ago when he started doing his Fat Fingers Friday posts. Did y'all ever see any of those? Yeah. Your hands grow, your palms certainly grow, your fingers grow. And of course, when you talk about size, it's not just absolute, it's relative to other parts of the body, because we're visual creatures, right? We take everything in relation to other things. So your forearms might look way bigger, but they might not be any bigger, but it's just, maybe it's a visual thing because other things have changed too.
Yeah, absolutely. Muscles sort of get tighter around it, and your forearms kind of pop more,
Yeah, they do. Now, what I would say is, if this person happens to be interested in getting their forearms bigger, I think that, and all the bodybuilders are going to get pissed at me, but I think getting bigger muscles is one of the more straightforward things out there in the whole world of lifting. And so I think I would agree with what you were saying earlier. I think that's pretty straightforward, following certain types of routines and programs, and you can do that. I haven't yet, but it's giving me an idea. Maybe I should start training for forearm side. Thanks for the suggestion.
There you go. Go ahead.
I think everybody sees your forearm Fridays and they're like, "Holy hell!"
Yeah.
Oh,
gotta
that's
train for
fun.
that.
I mean, that's you all think it's fun. I think it's fun to do this.
Yeah.
Mix
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
up, and yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, please. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, what motivates you to compete?
I like just like being part of the club, like one of the folks that's up there doing it. I love lifting with people. I absolutely love it. And it's even more fun when it's up on stage and it's for a contest. But
Yeah.
pre-pandemic, in the before time, so to speak, I would love to train with a big group of people. There's nothing better than getting a big group of people together, and all the better if we were training the same implements and grip and stuff. But sometimes it wouldn't even be that. Somebody might be doing a barbell deadlift and somebody else is on the Rolling Thunder, and we're just in the same space, lifting. I love that.
Yeah.
And when it's up on stage and it's just that added excitement and stuff, it's just how much better. So that's why I do it. That's
Awesome.
yeah.
I
And it
should
kind of
back
builds on
up
what
real
y'all were
quick
saying
and
before.
just say,
Yeah,
for the people that don't know you, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about you and how you came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I get a little sip of my water here?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna mute the thing so it doesn't.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll say hey to everybody, and my name is Dali Zheng. I'm originally from Lexington, Kentucky, and if you follow my Instagram, I'll use these kind of funny hashtags like the Chinese from Kentucky and the Asiatic Menace and things like this. And I'm half Chinese. Everybody on my dad's side of the family is from China. My dad did come over as an immigrant, and born and raised in Lexington, Kentucky, and I was fortunate to spend my childhood there and young adult years there until I went on to college and started moving around for work and for school and whatnot. Yeah, but I could talk all day about me. I don't know how people are going to get bored, but what do y'all want to know about? I can tell you. You want to know specific about lifting stuff, or do you want to know?
How long have you been in grip and arm lifting, and how'd you get involved with it?
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, let me take a step back, and then y'all just you can cut me off, or you can edit it, right, if you want to. Although you don't really do that, but so maybe just kind of you can give me a symbol to speed it up if I. So I'll say this: I had kind of a weird childhood. I had a really different childhood. When I was growing up in Lexington, my dad that I was talking about, when he came to this country, he was already the grandmaster, the living grandmaster for the southern branch of the Shaolin Temple. And so what he did when he came to this country, besides being a college student, was he started to teach Shaolin Kung Fu, martial arts, what he called karate at the time, to anybody basically that wanted to learn it. He would go to the YMCA, he would teach some classes, and yeah, he'd make a little money, but it was more about what we're saying about teaching people how to do this stuff. And so eventually what happened, my mom met him through the martial arts world, and they went to school together and stuff. And so when I was a kid, my parents had a gym, and it started off as just like two martial arts dojos, and then eventually it became a big place they called the Sports Center, and they had everything from racquetball courts and Olympic-sized swimming pool to a full gym, and we had the martial arts going on upstairs, and we had all these things. And so as a little kid, I would just hang out at the Sports Center. I would sit on the floor and watch the powerlifters lift and watch the bodybuilders lift, and I was like, just look at him in amazement. This guy, Cecil Blankenship's got 600 pounds on his back and he's squatting. And he's like, how in the world can,
That's crazy.
It's crazy stuff. And because it was a bigger facility and kind of a medium-sized to small town, anybody that would come through town, like for a rock concert or for like WWF or whatever, they would all work out there. So we had like Macho Man Randy Savage working out there. Bruce Springsteen comes for a concert or something. He comes here and works out.
That's crazy.
All this kind of stuff. Yeah, it was really, really cool and really weird
awesome.
childhood. Really weird childhood. And so my mom was already a black belt and she was studying martial arts, but she was also teaching what I guess now would have eventually turned into group exercise. But at the time, they didn't really have something like that. And she called it trimnastics. And the idea was, well, what if we just got people together, and it was mostly women, and they wanted to like lose some weight and they wanted to do calisthenics. And what if we all just got together and did leg raises and sit-ups and push-ups and stuff? And so they did this. And I remember her talking about, this is in the mid-70s, mid-1970s in Lexington, Kentucky, with a sports center. And she said, you know, we couldn't even get financial backing originally from 2 or 3 of the banks to start the sports center, because we told them what we had in mind, and they were like, you can't have men and women working out together in the same place. I mean, that's not going to go over. You know, men, they want to be in their bath towels, and they want to talk about their wives, and they want to, and so they were like adamant. And my dad, part of it was he's really stubborn, and he's a idealist and a dreamer and all this, and he's an immigrant, right? So he doesn't understand you can't do this. And my mom, I guess in a way, was kind of like, you know, very stubborn and tough and a businesswoman and all this. And so they stuck with it, and they said, no, we're going to do this. And eventually that's what happened. You know, you had men and women working out together in the same place. She had older women taking the gymnastics as well as younger women. And they asked her at the time, they wrote her up in one of the magazines, Bluegrass Woman. And they were like, well, what about the old women? You know, can they do all this stuff? And she's like, you know, we don't want to have a separate class for the oldies, because then people are going to like stigmatize. I mean, she didn't use that word stigmatize. That's like a word I might use, but she's like, people are going to say, oh, there go the old fogies. And, you know, and then almost like making fun of them, drawing attention to the fact they're older. And she's like, once they get over being sore and they, you know, they're going to do what they can do, you know, if they can't bend over as far, if they can't do as many reps. And sure enough, you know, this is an early example of what people like you and I, you know, we're talking about, right? Older people, other people you might not expect, they can do a lot more than what people think. So she was teaching these classes. My dad was teaching the martial arts, and I'm a little kid and I'm watching everybody work out, and I'm wanting to do it, you know, because I mean, right, you want to do whatever your parents are doing, everybody's doing. And back then they thought, you know, you're going to stunt your growth if you work out. You can't do it. And so my mom had some idea. I don't know where she read it, or she thought 14 was a magical age. So this is like, now we're up to 1984. And she's like, okay, come with me. And so first 2 years I worked out with my mom, and I learned a lot of really good habits, and I picked up a lot of bad habits too, things now that I wouldn't like to do. But that was the first 2 years of my training. And the guy that taught her was Ron Lacey. I don't know if y'all know much about bodybuilding, the old days, golden era bodybuilding. He was one of the early Mr. Americas, back when they had like Steve Reeves and some of these folks in the 50s and early 60s doing it. And so Ron was around, you know, he's from Kentucky, he originally in Michigan, Kentucky, and then he taught my mom, and then my mom taught me. And so we did stuff like, you know, I learned how to do really good, slow, controlled movements that are like the heart of a lot of bodybuilding, how to like feel the muscle pump and feel the muscle burn, and how kind of, you know, we used to call it isolating the muscle. Now we don't believe you can do that, but that kind of stuff, I learned that from her. But I also learned some things like wrapping your knees and always wearing a belt. And I've since tried to do away with these kind of things, because I feel like, you know, you're only as strong as your weakest link, and you have to develop, you know, all the structures and all the joints and everything too, you know. So I shy away from a lot of that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I started off in bodybuilding, you know, because that's what my mom did, and I did some bodybuilding contests as a teenager. And then somewhere along the way, you know, I was just like, I'm too small. I don't know if this is this, you know, if it's this half Chinese side of my background, but I'm just too small and want to get bigger. And I had the idea that I think now is a mistaken idea, but at the time I thought, if I did powerlifting, I thought if I lifted heavier weights, I thought I would get bigger. And so as a 18, 19-year-old, this was important to me. I kind of laughed at that question about the forearm size, because now I don't give a crap about that. But then I thought, oh yeah, I want to be bigger. And so I started powerlifting, you know, thinking I was going to get bigger. And then over the years, you realize, okay, look at the sport of powerlifting. You do have muscular people, but you got skinny people, and you got people with a lot of body fat, and you got people that don't look like they work out at all, and you got all kinds of things, because strength and muscle size and muscle definition all that doesn't go together necessarily. So but I found out through doing that for years and years, I just loved powerlifting. I loved lifting heavy. There's nothing like the feel of a heavy weight on your back for a squat, or pulling a heavy weight off the ground for a deadlift. And so I did that for the bulk of my lifting career, you know, 30 years, 20 some years. Let's see, from the time I was 18, 19 until maybe about 8 years ago. I'm 51 now. So what would that? That's hard math to do. Anyway, a long freaking
44.
time. I did that. Yeah, I did
43.
did
Yeah.
powerlifting. There you go. Sorry, my arithmetic is not. Yeah. So at some point, I'm like, I'm getting to your question, I promise, with the grip. So I'm doing powerlifting and I'm getting stronger on powerlifting. And one of my favorite things to do was a deadlift. And, I had to, at one point, I think what it was I took a kind of an honest, hard kind of a look at myself. And I was like, okay, you know what? This is great that you can deadlift all this weight and this is really nice and whatever. But look what you're doing. And so like what I was doing was, on something like a hex bar, right? I was getting up to mid 700s, and on a straight bar, I was getting up to over 600. But I was using straps, and I would switch over from my regular double overhand to somewhere along the way, 400 or so. I'm like, okay, it's too hard for my grip. And it wasn't just a matter of using chalk or just a matter of using like a hook grip. I would start strapping up. I start using straps. And so, come on. You can't even pull 400 or more without having to use straps. And so like I said, I took a hard look at myself and I got very disappointed. I got frustrated. And so I'm like, look, buddy, grip is your weak link. Your grip sucks. You're weak on grip and you need to get your grip better. And so what I did was I just quit the straps cold turkey. Was the first thing I do. That was kind of like my foray into grip, was just quitting the straps and saying, I'm not ever going to use the straps again. And I think, now in hindsight, I think they can be a very useful tool. I just didn't have the discipline, because I've seen people that can use them well. And one of the people, I know this guy, and I'm going to screw up his last name, so I'm going to try. But Alexei the Tank, the Tank, the Russian lifter, has to be, if not the strongest, one of the top 4 or 5 strongest people in the world on things like an axle deadlift, right? I mean, things like other people dream about. He can shrug that axle, right? Over 400, shrugging it. And so when I saw Alexei warming up at some of these events, like when he come out for LA Fit Expo, I'm like, that freaking guy, he's the straps, goddamn it, he's in straps. But he did them in a very strategic, disciplined way. He would use them to save his hands all through the warm up, and then when the time came, he set them aside and not use them. And I wasn't like that. I found I used them too much. So my way to get in and started getting a grip like 8 years ago was I just quit cold turkey, no more straps, and I never used them. And of course, at first, all my numbers took a big hit. And then eventually, slowly, my grip started getting stronger. And then it got to a point where I felt like, I liked it enough that I wanted to focus more on grip, because I'm not ashamed to say this. Like I will try not to badmouth anybody, but like I do find that some of the advice that I was reading, I'll just say that, I'll just keep it anonymous, I was reading out there was things like, just train your grip once a week. Treat grip training kind of like you do squats. It's very serious. So you don't squat like once a week or less. So just train your grip once a week. And I believe that foolishly. I realize now I was naive. I don't know why I thought that was the case. And so I trained grip for years, but I think I made slower progress than I would have because I was only training it like once a week. But my deadlifts did go up, and I wasn't using straps, so my deadlifts were going up. And then I would say 4 or 5 years ago, I met Clay Edgen. Do you all know Clay? Have you all gotten a chance to meet Clay yet? Okay. I met Clay here in Santa Cruz. And at that time, he owned the Santa Cruz Strength Gym. And I've been training grip, over at some of the other places where I was working out. And I kept hearing his name come up. And anybody that knew him kept saying, oh, man, I can't believe you don't know Clay. You got to meet Clay. You guys would hit it off. You train some grip together. And so I was like, yeah, I keep hearing that. And for whatever reason, we've been here almost 10 years now. I didn't do it right away. Just busy, I guess, work and one thing or another. And then finally I ended up going out there 4 or 5 years ago. And sure enough, it was just like they said, like we hit it off right away. We started training grip together. We became training partners. And then after a year or so, in the time of training with him, one of the things I realized is this idea that you got to train it more. I mean, that's like, if I could have one single piece of advice to say, is that grip seems to respond to high volume of training more often, more sets, more just anything more volume. A lot of the strength sports, including powerlifting, we have to do a lot more periodization and a lot more rest days, a lot more time off. And I feel like, in my experience and people I've worked with, I feel like the more we throw at the hands, the stronger they get. And I think that's one of the big lessons that I learned from Ricardo, from Clay, and by extension from Ricardo and Ode and some of the other folks in this neck of the woods, when we would get together to train or go to meets and stuff, was it's volume, high volume training grip all the time. Train it twice a day if you want to, and that's certainly been confirmed when we had the opportunity to travel overseas and talk to people like in Finland. We talked to Arto, we talked to Hari and all them. Those guys train grip 3 or 4 times a day. I mean, it's like you can't train it enough. It just gets stronger the more you throw at it, So that's what I'd say. Initially, the way I got started in grip was recognizing it's a weakness. I got to improve my grip. And then meeting up with Clay, I learned that you got to train it more often. You got to do more for it. And then what happened was Clay was the one that encouraged me to do my very first contest. In 2018, he was going to do the LA Fit Expo, which has gone through different names. Like y'all might know it as, I think they call it the US Armlifting Championship now, right? Or American Armlifting Championship, but we always call it the LA Fit Expo. And that was one of Ode's big contests. And these were the ones that people like Alexei would fly from Russia all the way here for the weekend to do that contest, this kind of thing. And that was my very first contest was that contest. And I was a heavyweight, and I'm in there with people like Alexei and Carl Myersko, right? Big Carl, right? He's from another planet, so strong. And these are the people that were in the same the class that I was in. And yeah, it was something. But that's one way to do it, right? Jump in the deep end and see if you can swim, and I definitely learned a lot. Like we're saying at the outset, right? How we're all students, we're all teachers. You just watch everybody, take notes, ask them a million questions,
Exactly.
And like what you were saying too, like when you get to know people, like you find they're really nice, really approachable. Like in the gym
absolutely.
or whatnot, they might give off this, stay away from me, but that's just their posture for the gym. They're not really like that when you talk to them.
Yeah. That's why we went to North Texas, was to learn. We knew the North Texas crew was going to absolutely murder us and anything, but like they're the best in the world over there. Let's go.
Oh yeah.
See what they know.
And you can see the creativity working, right? You can see the wheels turning, so to speak. And those guys come up with stuff, like who do you remember whose idea it was about trying that one arm pull up on that golden potato? Did Tanner just want to do it, or did you all say, hey, could you do this, or how did that come about?
I think it was Adam's idea. He's like, I bet you Tanner could do a 1-arm pull up on a potato.
Yeah, I think he threw that out before anybody else had even tried it.
And there's no limit. There's no limit. Like the next time you see someone like this, he might be trying with 4 fingers or 3 or whatever, right? It's just like, what's the next level? Trying to, yeah. That's good stuff.
Pretty wild. Those guys are pretty darn strong. That was cool to see.
Yeah. And they're I know they're cheering for everybody, encouraging everybody, because I've been around them a little bit. I know that's what it's like. I haven't been there though. We got to live in Houston, but we never made it that far up.
Yeah. So you said you're in Santa Cruz now?
We're in Santa Cruz right now.
That's
we've been here probably close to 10 years, I think.
So do you train with Ricardo and Ode regularly, or do you get to see them? I mean, I know it's a little ways, but it ain't that far.
Yeah. I have not been to Ricardo's grip garage yet. He is so gracious. He's invited me so many times, and I want to go. And the latest excuse has just been the pandemic, because for going on 2 years now, we haven't done any contests or anything. But I've gotten to do quite a few contests with Ricardo, because when Ode would have contests like in San Diego, because we have friends and family in San Diego or San Jose, we just jump on the bus and we go up to San Jose. And so I've gotten to do a lot of contests with a lot of those folks, but I haven't been to Ricardo's place and seen his grip garage, but I feel like I know it from watching all the videos over the years.
Yeah.
We're trying to bring him up north. We all did an interview with Ricardo, because I watched some of that too.
Yes, he's awesome.
Yeah. And he's a good example of what we're talking about, right? Because Ricardo is a big time believer in the specificity of training and the numbers and doing things this way, that way. Yeah.
We're trying to bring him up north for a contest, because we do arm lifting, and that's what our Golden Potato Championship is all about. So we're hoping Ricardo will come up here and compete against us.
I hope he does too. I
was going to say, you should.
Such a great ambassador.
You can come up with him.
The sport. Man, he loves the sport.
You come up to the Pacific Northwest too and come compete in that contest. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I would love to
Bring-
do that. I would love
Bring
to do
all
that.
the Californians up.
Yeah, it'll
Yeah,
be a nice break
it's
from 115 degrees in the middle of July.
That might be
Oh, yeah.
115 now here.
Yeah.
Never know.
Is that what kind of numbers did y'all? Are you talking about in the July? You hit those kind of numbers?
Not normally, no.
No, the last
okay,
year
okay.
though, or this year in
That's fine.
June, we hit 117.
Oh,
Yeah, we did have some
gosh.
crazy heat this past year, but normally no.
Yeah.
Normally it's in the upper 80s,
Yeah.
low 90s.
No, my favorite, like, because where I grew up in Kentucky is very mild. We definitely get 4 seasons, but they're
Yeah.
all relatively mild. But
Yeah.
of the places we've been fortunate enough to live, my favorite are the ones that are a little more extreme. So we got to live in Butte, Montana, and I loved
Ooh.
the weather there. We got to live in Syracuse, New York for 7.5 years, and that was probably my number one favorite in terms of weather. Tons and tons of wet snow. I mean, we would get 200 plus inches, you know.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
You'd
In
love
the
to live
winter.
where Joy lives then.
Yeah.
Oh,
It snows all the
man.
time there.
You know, I deal with that better. I don't know.
As long as it's 0 degrees, she's like, okay, good. I can train outside. It's 0 or
Yeah.
higher.
No, it's just I think some of us are just kind of oriented that way. You know, ever since I was a kid, my parents have stories, you know, about me as a little kid, loving the cold weather and stuff. So
I was gonna say, if you like the rain, just come over here too. It rains 9 months out of the year. You'll be fine.
I never thought I would miss it, but where we are is so dry. So now
Yeah.
when we get some rain, I'm like, man, it's a little bit, it's close to real weather. I love it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just, I mean, it was honestly odd just being in Texas for 4 days and having no rain for 4 days. We're like, huh.
It's
Pretty dry.
October and it's 86 degrees
What's
and
going
I'm
on?
sweating
So
like
dry.
sweating like crazy at the
name of the
racetrack.
what's the name of the city where they are? Can you all tell me that?
They're in
And-
Dallas, Fort Worth area.
Yeah,
Oh, the
he's
Dallas
over in
Fort Worth area.
Weatherford.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. God, so that's just it's massive, right? A humongous area. Were y'all just driving and all these crazy highways and all this stuff? Or
It wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Okay.
And especially
good.
when we went down to Austin from Fort Worth. I don't know if there was like an accident or something, but it had us go on all these farm to market roads. And I swear I was driving for an hour and a half through an oil field.
Oh,
2-lane road, just driving
that's
forever.
nice. Yeah, I like that kind
Still
of
the same oil field. I'm like,
cross country. No, that kind I can do.
where am I going?
As long as you got gas in the car and water
Yeah.
and stuff, you know.
Seemed like it took an
Yeah.
hour and a half for the sun to rise. What,
Yeah, it's
what is going on here?
nothing
Yeah.
like driving through like Seattle or LA or anything like that. No.
No, I can't do it anymore. I can't.
LA is insane. I will say that over. I'll drive in
No.
Dallas, Fort Worth, anytime over driving in LA still.
So, yeah, definitely.
When you got like 8 highways going all different directions and 3 of them are on the left and 4 of them are on the right and one of them drops out of the middle of the highway, you know, you just never know.
No. And I mean, I know we're talking about exercise and grip and stuff. We're gonna get way off on a tangent, but that's one area of life with our contemporary, you know, civilization where I think we've gone downhill for sure. You know, we made some advances of, you know, granted in other areas, but when it comes to things like that, the traffic and stuff, yeah, lower quality of life, I think.
Yeah, it's not really
Yeah.
necessary.
No.
It's not really necessary. You can live a pretty comfortable life doing, you know, work not that far from home and, you know, having your
Yeah.
activities not that far from home and getting to know your local community a little better.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'd rather come visit you in Santa Cruz and go to the beach than try to go to Santa Monica Pier anytime, because I was going to go to the Santa Monica Pier and I think I saw like 650 people cross the road at one crosswalk and I waited
Oh.
forever and I was like, I'm not doing this.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy crowded here too. Everywhere, I guess, you know. We got to go back and visit Lexington for my birthday, and you know, it's once you get outside the city and you're in the areas, it's just like I remember it. Beautiful. I can't even describe it. My words are just going to completely fail me. But you know, the way I felt with the beauty and the horse farms and so familiar. But when you're in the town and you're in the city, you know, it's like any of these places, right? It's the congestion and commerce and overcrowded and bumper to bumper traffic, and you know, and for what? For another Panera Bread or another some other stupid chain or whatever. So
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna veer too much into politics. I'm gonna veer too much into politics.
We got the same thing in
man.
Texas. I'm like, I have all the same shops in a shopping mall in Vancouver that there isn't.
No, I mean, what's the
Dallas.
point?
Yeah,
right?
there were a
What's the-
couple
what's the
unique
point?
places. We made sure to visit like the few unique things we could see, but for the most part, yeah, it was, you know, there were only a
Yeah.
few unique things left.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I'd imagine years ago, maybe when you were a child, you know, if you traveled through the country, it was vastly different where you went.
Yeah, and I mean,
Not as
it's been
much
said
like that.
before, but I do feel like was more about the individual character of these places, you know,
Yeah.
instead of just everything becoming generic, you know, and uniform like that. So,
Exactly.
but I mean, it's not how it is right now. So I know we got to deal with this situation. But I don't know. So what do y'all think? I mean, I feel like this is a great opportunity to talk about, you know, this stuff. What are y'all thinking is the next step? Like, well, I mean, tomorrow I know we got King Kong, right? And I'm assuming none of us are doing it, right? Because we would already talked about this. Y'all aren't
Yep.
hosting anything, are you? There?
No, we competed in King Kong in North Texas. That's why we were there.
Oh, they did it early. I didn't realize. I thought it was all tomorrow.
No, it was.
Yeah, promoters get to go either 1 week early or 2 weeks early, so they have the opportunity to do that.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, and
Okay,
Adam was
okay.
nice enough to allow us to kind of choose the weekend in October because
Oh,
he
that's
had
really cool. That's
3
really
weeks
cool.
open pretty much. And he's like,
Okay.
hey, when do you guys want to come down? I know you guys are flying all the way from Washington. What would work best for you? And then he built the
Okay.
contest kind of
I
around the
see.
day
I
we wanted
see.
to go.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he blessed us with letting us choose kind of our date to go to North
Okay.
Texas and hang out and compete in King Kong. So we've already done the competition.
Okay.
We have
So
all our
what are
results.
y'all what were your thoughts on the implements and stuff? You have any comments? Is it too much to go into for
Well, you know, it's different. There's two different forms of grip. There's like the European style of grip where they like the odd implements like the penny pinch and the doubloon and some smaller implements that are more intricate. And technically, I think that's probably more grip specific, you know, meaning just your hands, meaning just grip, than arm lifting is. I mean, not everybody can lift 400 pounds off the ground. So 400-pound axles like tough for a lot of people. So, you know, it's two different. It's almost like two different sports.
Yeah.
You know, it really is. Like you can find guys that don't have very much strength overall body that can do well in the odd implement stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and
this is an
we
interesting time, right? Interesting time
we kind
in
of
the
host
sport.
two different events. Because the big ones we host are the Golden Potato Championship and then Gripmas in July. Gripmas in July has a medley that has some funky stuff in it, has some vertical lifts, has some different things that are more towards the you know, grip focus of the sport. And then we do arm lifting, which is more towards, you know, overall body strength plus, you know, hand strength.
Right. So I think part of it is what we're seeing, what we're talking about, like where these grip sports are right now, right? And whether we consider it one big umbrella, it's all under grip, or whether we consider, like you're saying, this European side, arm lifting. Let's not forget grip, the ones that go by grip sport, right? The North American Grip Sport Association.
Yep.
You know, they have their own history and their own tradition, their own ways of doing things, including with the timed medleys, right?
Yep.
You know, the way they organize it when the floor is filled with all these devices and you have a certain amount of time to do as many as you can. And just to complicate things even further, what I'm an observation I'm going to throw out there is that one of the things that we noticed when we get to go to the APL, y'all know the Arm Lifting Professional League, right? The APL is based in St. Petersburg, and in Russia, unlike in the United States, they have several professional arm lifting organizations. They have like 5 or 6, and APL is one of the big ones. And when we would go over there for their contest, the World Championships, one of the things that we would notice is in other countries, sometimes they approach it really differently. So where those of us on Team USA, people like me and Clay, we would kind of think of it almost like a decathlon or something, where we wanted to be more of a well-rounded grip person and be pretty good at all these things.
Yeah.
A lot of other countries, like in Russia, they would do the opposite. They would be like a specialist, and they would just really focus on Rolling Thunder, or they would just really focus on Hub, and that would be all that they would compete on. And it's not to say like in their training they wouldn't do some of this other stuff, but it was all in a supportive supplemental capacity to get really good at this one event.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So I have seen some of what you're talking about in places like the Bonehill contest that Arto currently hosts, and they certainly had a lot of those implements, and a lot of them come out of Finland. You know, people like Pekka Salo, right, is making some of this stuff, like the finished ball, right, and all these things.
I hate that
Um,
thing.
yeah. I hate it, but I hate it because of the British and say I'm rubbish at it. You know, I suck at it. So
Exactly.
but I probably need to do it because I'm terrible at it. You know. But I mean, you know, I think it's an interesting question. Like, should we be kind of good at a lot of different things? Is it good to have an all-around grip? And while we're at it, I mean, geez, look at y'all brought up bending earlier, and you know, like the you know the things that people have done with tearing, right, and all these
Yeah, oh
kinds of
yeah.
things. And some people would say that's a whole nother area, and some people would say no, that's all part of having a strong grip.
Yeah.
You know, so we can even extend it out further. You know, but I think it's a good question. I think it's a good question. So your point is like all this stuff is concurrent, right? It's all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good point. Good point.
And I like more of the arm lifting just because I come from a strongman background. So I like, you know, the big axle pulls and,
Uh-huh.
you know, things like that. And let's do a silver bullet hold and see what I can do and get a Saxon bar out, see if I can, you know, pull 300 pounds on a Saxon bar. And that's the kind of grip I like just because I come from that strongman background. That's just more my
Yeah.
style.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense to me.
I mean,
I'm
I
also
think
thinking
honestly,
about, sorry, go ahead.
like where they're going to make money in grip sport or in grip in general, grip implements isn't going to be off us guys that are grabbing these, you know, metal implements and lifting big weights on it. It's going to be off people that are doing Pilates that are willing to squeeze the donuts, you know,
Oh,
and things like that. Like to expand grip in general, I think it's going to go towards like sport specific grip training and just grip for life training, like grip for quality of life. Like you train older people, grip for quality of life has a bigger market than we could ever imagine grip sport could have. You know, with
There's
the
more
baby
potential. With
the baby
people,
boomer out there wanting to stay healthy in their older life. And you got to think how independent that generation was. They were told, when you're 18, you move out, you get a job, you take care of yourself. So that generation of people that want to be able to take care of themselves until they die, they're going to want to have hands that can do the things they need to do in their older life. And I think that grip for quality of life is going to be way bigger than any grip sport money making. You know, it's going to, you're going to have a lot bigger market, make a lot more money aiming towards that kind of demographic.
But if we go back to what you were, some of the original things that both of y'all raised, because you were talking about some of the implements like the doubloon and all these ones that involve the thumb and the smaller muscles. But then you talked about the bigger things, right? Like the axle coming from strongman. And so when I think about some of these things, like what people need for functionally to get along, to do things, for example, in their kitchen or when they're shopping, I do think it's going to involve some of these kind of smaller hand kind of things like you're talking about.
For sure.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be like the puff pieces. It doesn't have to be like the stuff the low quality stuff that they mass market.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, and like places like Amazon have made it worse because there's like there's like so much, but a lot of it is such low quality, you know. And I would like to see people gravitate towards more of the higher quality, durable stuff that's going to last.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think that's more important because to do these things, you do need your hands more. You know, you might be able to do some things off the ground, but maybe not to that other level. I mean, I could tell you a kind of a quick story about Betsy, and I know you all have seen her on my Instagram.
Yeah.
And we also have the YouTube channel too. It's called Getting Older, Getting Stronger.
Okay.
Which
check that out.
I try to use the hashtag on the Instagram when I put up on mine, but the basic concept is like we're talking about. Just because you're getting older doesn't mean you have to be weaker. You can actually get stronger, especially if you're starting later in life. You know.
Yep.
And the original reason why she came to me in the very first place more than 8 years ago is because her partner was terminally ill. And she was like, well, I know if he fell, I wouldn't actually be able to pick him up, but I want to be able to help him. And if he's on the ground, if I could at least help him get up partway, then I would be, that would be worth it for me. I would spend any amount of time if I could be of more help to him if this were to happen. And so, you know, we trained together. And one of the things that she had to find out early on is how, yes, you can do this. You can get stronger. But one of the things that we've been finding out together, like we talked about how we're all students, we're all teachers. One of the things we've been finding out together, because I'd never worked with people that were as old as my team until these last 8 years, is that they can do it, but it just takes longer. You know, that it's like in a single workout, it takes longer because it takes twice as long to warm up, or the recovery takes longer, you know, or it takes the trajectory of improvement is much, much slower. But if you can invest enough time and energy, you know, they can get to almost anywhere they want to be. And so as we were training together over the years, movements like her deadlift kept creeping up. And we eventually got to the point, because she started when she was, Betsy started when she was 74. She's, is that right? 73. And so by the time that she was 80, and we've been training together that long, she was up to 200 pounds on her conventional deadlift.
Wow.
And just a year or so before that, what happened is her partner did fall, and she came into the other room and saw that he was on the ground, and you know, he was very very uncomfortable, but he was also very embarrassed, of course, because he didn't want her to see him that he was on the ground. He was trying to figure out a way to get up, and he couldn't. And so she tried several times to get him up, and what she told me is, she said, I kept hearing your voice in your head, and I kept thinking about all the things we talk about, and I kept trying to use all these techniques that we talked about. And she's like, I realized that, you know, I wasn't getting tired, and I certainly wasn't hurting myself. I was just kind of having to figure out how to lift them, because it's so different lifting a person than lifting something like a barbell, obviously, you know. And so she figured it out, and she picked him up, and she had him in her arms, and she let him put him on the bed. And so like it came full circle, you know, the situation that she feared, but then she was so glad too that she was able to do this. And so this is like kind of a heavier version of that other story that we had about the kitty litter. You know, it doesn't matter if it's something that's really huge like this, or it's just an everyday kind of thing. How easy is it for you to, you know, carry your laundry around or run your vacuum cleaner? Or, you know, she loves to bake, and she has a big industrial sized mixer she has to pick up. She can pick it up and walk across the kitchen, you know, instead of having to call her neighbor or somebody to help her, you know, that's just kind of thing.
That's why Joy actually got into it as well. And what we found out from Joy herself is why she wanted to train, as I believe her grandkids were moving out, and she's like, how am I going to get this 5-gallon water jug into my water bin? You know, there's no way I could pick that up. And one of her grandsons said, hey, have you ever considered getting stronger, Grandma? And the rest is history. And she's like, I carry those things one-handed now and flip them up on there, no problem.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm the first person that has my driveway shoveled in the morning.
Love that. I love that. She went through so many stages, right?
Yeah.
She went from just doing what she set out to do, and then she found out that she loves it, and like a different side of her comes out, and she's oh man.
I think she started with soup can presses too.
Yep. Well, and then again with the pandemic, a lot of us had to go back to square one and figure out how to do this stuff, and then we built up to like a new level. Like y'all got this whole new facility, right, that you got going, and
still working on that 10-gallon tomato soup can, but I'm pressing it.
Oh man. No, that's interesting though. The interesting point about the difference, you know, within the sport, and the things that we get excited about, but also why we do things and what motivates us, you know.
Exactly.
I came out about it quickly, but I didn't want to sit there and belabor it, and I didn't want to do all this navel gazing and stuff. So I just will, if you don't mind, I'll just quickly throw it out there and we'll change the topic. But I had, during the pandemic, I had this thing that happened to me personally, where I developed hernias. I developed 2 hernias, and I got diagnosed with this. And so I've learned all about this. And one of the things I learned is that people with male bodies in their 40s and 50s, like a third of us have this happen. So people that don't lift, people that do all kinds of things, it just kind of happens. And so I'm learning all about this. So I had to completely change all of my training, you know, from the rebuild it from the ground up. And I'm still right in the middle of early stages, so to speak, of figuring all this kind of stuff out. But so it's a question of always learning and trying new things, but it's also like, be thankful for what you can do, you know, and when you start to complain about, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that, or it's like, no, you know, it could get worse. You could lose this other ability, or this other thing could happen, or, you know, we could all go back to having to just stay in our houses again and not be able to go out. And then won't you miss going to that store that you complain about that they don't carry this or that or the other, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what have you discovered in this journey from that condition? Do you have that works better with dealing with it, or do you have to completely stop lifting, or how do you go about, you know?
I mean, I'm happy. I can tell you what I found so far, as long as I put a big asterisk by it and say that's all that it is, you know, like at this stage, what I know. So as is often the case in the medical community, a lot of times with doctors and especially with surgeons and stuff, they don't necessarily know very much about exercise or how it impacts the body. And in fairness, they haven't had any training in this. Their training is in entirely other areas. And so we all know the joke from, coming from doctors is if it hurts, don't do it, things like this. And one of the things that comes up when they try to give people advice, and this is either if you're trying to avoid making them worse, or if you've just had surgery and you've spent all the time, which it can take 6 months or upwards of a year to come back from the surgery that you do. They're using something called a mesh repair, where they go in and put a piece of mesh and cover the spot. But if you do come back from the surgery, or if you decide not to do the surgery, a lot of the advice that you hear from doctors is things like, well, just don't do things that are very strenuous. So like this includes like, don't deadlift any more than 200 pounds. Oh, you can do whatever you want, but just don't deadlift more than 200 pounds, things like this. It's sort of like, whoa, someone like me, right? It's like, whoa, what are you talking about? So the more I research it, and a lot of the research is not just understanding the anatomy and what happens, but also talking to people that have made choices like to have the surgery or to not have the surgery. And a lot of them are lifters. And what it seems to be is that there's only a small percentage of the time, like for this kind of hernia, the inguinal hernias, like 2 or 3% of the time, it can result in something that's very serious, life-threatening, even like strangulation. If that happens, no question, it's emergency. You go to the hospital, and as soon as they can, they do the surgery. But in other cases, what they say is they stay the same size, or they could slowly get bigger, or they could rapidly get bigger. And so what I'm trying to do is to either keep them at the same size or keep them from growing as slowly as I can. And so I'm trying to work around it or prevent this from happening. And I could say in general, when I help other people as a coach, I usually talk about like 3 different kinds of exercise, because we have some exercise that is detrimental, that we suspect from our experience or from what others have told us that can make conditions worse. We have exercise where we're kind of working around the problem and not aggravating, but not helping it. And we have some kinds of exercise, including, but not limited to, but including physical therapy type exercises that are targeted at improving the area, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do is learn about the things to avoid, do as much of the second kind where I work around it, and then even to learn some of the third kind where I can help support it. And so that's one of the reasons why I've been doing more and more and more midsection work, including a lot of calisthenics, is because if I can get all of these areas that are around them stronger, then what I feel like it's going to allow me to do is relax that area more, if that makes sense. Because when they come out, you can feel it in real time when they come out and when they flare. And so at the risk of being too personal, again, you just tell me that, it's most of the bathroom activities are what make it the worst, like sneezing and blowing your nose and having a bowel movement, and these kind of things are what aggravate the most. And in exercise, if you can have good control, then it doesn't seem to aggravate it right then. It doesn't seem to aggravate it later on that day or the next day. And so as I'm exercising, including things like deadlifts or bent over rows, squats, when I'm down in that position, I'm noticing things like not just what is the weight, but how low am I? How much intensity do I seem to be applying? Am I using this area or other areas of the body? And I'm just kind of hyper aware of this and trying out different things. And, so far, some of the things that I've been doing are things like what you brought up earlier, things like going ahead and using a much bigger bar.
Yeah.
Because what that allows me to do is not only to keep the weight lighter, but I can just make it so much harder on my hands too, which I want, of course, for my grip to get stronger.
Of course.
The things that, so in a lot of ways, a lot of those things you talked about, those small implements, everything from a finished ball to like a hand gripper to a pinch block, a lot of these things we do, we attach it to a loading pin. You're pretty far off the ground, so you don't get your body down low in that position.
Yeah, exactly.
That's potentially problematic. Yeah. So that's all good. And so from a point of view of like the grip activities, the thing that I haven't been able to do are things like an inch style dumbbell lift off the floor.
Yeah.
Or like when I've gone and done some plate hubbing and things like that, which I really enjoy, or some blobs or something, I have to put them up on like a 12-inch box or bring them up off the floor a little bit, and then I can do it okay. And usually it's not too much of a problem because most of these implements, you can lift them in a way that's not grip intensive, right? You can
Right.
put your arms around it and cup it and just lift it up because the object itself is not that heavy. And
Yeah,
then once it
exactly.
gets in positions, you can do it in a way that is grip intensive. So yeah, so far so good. I'm finding all kinds of things that I can do, but I'll I'll let you know. I'll let you know as I go. But I'm very encouraged because I hear from people. It's like anything, right? You come out with something like if you have cancer or heart disease. Ricardo's been talking about what it's
Yep.
like post heart attack, right? Do y'all follow strongman archaeology, James? I'm sure you
Yes,
probably do, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, he's somebody that's been living with and lifting with hernias for 15 plus years.
Oh wow.
So he's like, all the lifting you see me do, I've done with my inguinal hernias,
Yeah.
So he's the kind of person that really encourages me.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has to be careful and learn their body. I have T-spine arthritis, so I don't bench nearly as heavy as Adam. You'll see that. And
Yeah.
Adam's a lot more careful on his deadlifts because he has one hip that's about a half inch higher than the other. So I can push
That's
it a
what we're
little
talking
harder on
about.
deadlift. He can push it way harder on bench press, and we sort of watch each other. Like if I'm benching, Adam's real careful about watching what I'm doing because he knows that I can hurt my back really well. And whenever he deadlifts, we're always keeping his weight where he's really comfortable and making sure that he's lifting level. Things like that.
Yeah, exactly,
absolutely.
exactly. Or just changing your mindset, right? Because I think again, I think for so many of us when we're younger, I'm not saying for everybody, but for so many of us when we're younger, one of the traits sometimes for youth is being kind of closed-minded in certain ways, and you think, well, if I'm not squatting all the way down, it's not really a squat, or if I'm not coming all the way down to my chest, it's not really bench press. So we have these kind of thoughts, and as we get older, right, on necessity, we have to realize we have to modify how we do it. I was thinking earlier when you were talking about bowling, and they've often called bowling a lifetime sport, because they say like no matter how old you get, you can still do it. You change your form, you don't get down there as low or you throw it differently, but you can still do it. And I think grip has a real potential to be that too.
Yeah, I think so.
I really do. And maybe okay, so maybe you can't do that one event. Maybe you can't do like heavy axle deadlift. But but the other side of it is, if you just want to do it, you can still do an axle deadlift, but maybe you're just not in contention for some trophy or something. But you still do it. Like you said, it's about the camaraderie. Or nobody's going to care if you do the 2 or 4 other events, but you don't do that one event. So what? Right?
Yeah, I mean, you can always just switch to rolling thunder if you don't want to pick it up all the way off the floor,
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
fantastic. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And speaking of when we were younger and we're like, oh, I didn't go all the way down. I didn't care about all that. I just wanted to bench and do bicep curls. Are you kidding me? When I was younger, that's all that mattered. What you're talking about. I just had to look good doing it.
One of my buddies, after I stopped training with my mom, and I found this guy, Greg Cliston, we started working out together. He taught me a lot about bodybuilding. I did some of my first shows with Greg. In the first 2 years of his training, that's all he did was curls. That's all he did was curls. And so at one point he had a 20-inch arm, a 20-inch upper arm. And people would ask him, well, how did that happen? And he'd always say, well, they kind of had a head start. I was doing it for a couple of years first before I did anything.
I'd run, bench, and do curls.
Run, bench, and do curls.
Keep the cardio so you have that.
Well balanced. Yeah,
have that six pack and then have good biceps and chest.
No, I know. And that's what, now it's like we get older and I'm like, that's one of the things I always tell younger people. It's like, I spend more time warming up. I mean, you call it whatever you want. They have all these words for it now that they call it mobility instead of flexibility and stretching. They call it this and they call it, but like, I spend more time doing all that than I do what I would consider actual lifting or working out.
Yeah.
And I know all that stuff is important. It's super important. And that was one of the things that I had to learn in the pandemic because I started having more and more aches and pains and nerve pain and all kinds of stuff because I was just sitting around too much. And so I had to reevaluate all my stretching protocols on my mobility protocol stuff. And I'm like, God damn it, now I got to stretch 3 times a day. But once I started doing that, all that other pain and stuff just went away. It's like, okay, that's what you got to do. You just do it.
I wish I would have done that younger.
Yeah. How old are you all? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm 33.
Oh,
37.
Okay. And so y'all been doing it for a while, but you're still I would say someone like me would say you're relatively young because I'm 51. Yeah. But somebody like Ode's crazy. Ode is 71 now. and he doesn't even warm up. So he throws all that stuff out the window. Like I've never seen him do a warm up set. He'll be over there
Yeah, I'm
sitting and
kinda
talking,
like
and somebody will
that.
just stand up and walk over there and lift. You know.
I'm kind of like Gumby. I've been really limber since I was a little tiny kid, and I
Okay.
can still almost drop into the splits at 3 in the morning. And I think some people are that's just the way they are.
You want to be freeze on us?
No.
Nope.
I think part of it is I don't know what to call it. Something like a worldview, a lifestyle difference. Because I remember when we were in Finland for Arto's contest for the contest as a Bonehill contest, and I remember Jerome. Y'all know Jerome Balloon,
yeah.
right? Him, his brother. Yeah. And he came around and he was watching Jason Dingy and some of us, we were all in a group, and we're all kind of like this. We had our notebooks and we're taking down all the notes, and and what am I going to do for my second attempt, and got to make sure it's this. And Jerome came around and said, "Man, you Americans are so serious. You're so serious." And I was really taken aback. I didn't know what he meant by this, and was thinking about it ever since then. I'm like, he's right. And I think what he means is like, we're in a foreign country, we're getting to see all this stuff and meet all these people and do all this stuff, and still, like, it's like this super intense, serious job. Every single second, we got to be writing it down and recording it. And I look over and I see him and the other British lifters. I see the Finnish lifters, the ones from Russia. See other countries, and they're laughing and they're drinking and they got the arms locked and they're swinging, and they're just having an absolute blast. And then when it's time for them to lift, it's like just something just switches over, and they lift. And let me tell you, they give it more than, if it's possible to give 100%, then they're giving 100%.
Yeah.
But it was just like a switch. It was like flipping a switch, and then they're in that mode. And then after that, back to drink and have a good time and carrying on and partying and whatever. And so I wonder if that's part of it. Someone like, because he didn't grow up in the U.S. He's from somewhere else, and maybe they just get to where they're used to, like, when it's time, you're on and you go do it and whatever,
Exactly.
But you said you've always been
Yeah,
like that
absolutely.
since you were a kid. You could drop down the splits, huh?
Yeah, I think that helps with not having to warm up as much, for sure. Especially
Yeah.
in my older age, I don't have to warm up as much.
What do you do, like, when you're sitting and stuff? You don't mind me asking? Are you like in like a deep squat and stuff, or you kind of like, do you
I
notice, like, you
definitely make
incorporate
sure
it
I
in your
protect
day?
my back as I walk throughout the day and I stand throughout the day. I definitely make sure I protect my back.
Okay.
And as I walk, I always make sure my back's somewhat loaded. And my knees are sort of like loose and springy. I sort of walk in almost like a Tai Chi type position most of the time. I try to.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And yeah, I do stretch. Like if I'm sitting on the couch for a while or things like that, I will sit in a stretch position, or I'll sit in a cross-legged position sometimes.
Okay.
Just to,
But you're always
do that
aware of
throughout the
it.
day.
But you feel like maybe it contributes a little bit, but it's more like you were just kind of always like that. Is that what you think?
Yeah, I think it was just getting involved with that stuff when I was really young. Sort of
Oh, early habits and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I was one of the most limber people in martial arts when I was a little kid, and I kind of just kept with that.
Okay. Yeah, I can generally see that. I mean, growing up around it, I remember I would walk in the room and I see my dad. He would have his leg up on the refrigerator. He just would do this stuff like all the time. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's ideal if it becomes second nature, right? It's just one thing to pay attention, but if you can sort of pay attention, but it's not all consuming, where you can still do other stuff, I think that might be the best of both.
You mentioned WWF earlier. Do you watch WWE Today?
I don't. I never really got into it too much. My brother really got into it a lot more. I just have a few little sporadic stories here and there from meeting some people. But how about yourself? Are you a fan?
Yeah, we watch a little bit. I watch a little bit here and there. But I was gonna say, if you did, there's a guy named Big E on there who's like 300 pounds and can easily drop into the splits. And he talks a lot about how anytime he rides in a car or anywhere, he's always stretching his hip flexors all the time.
Wow.
He's always making sure his hip flexors are nice and loose.
Even his silly dance that he uses to walk to the ring and whatnot is a hip opening movement.
Yeah, it's all to open up hips. That's what he does constantly.
And he's ludicrously strong, like champion powerlifter, 575-pound bench press, like one of the strongest guys in there now today.
Yeah.
But he's just constantly doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
See, that's what we're talking about. I can't remember the football player now, but there was another football player that I remember he was talking about that he does watch quite a bit of TV, and we could say that's, it is what it is, or there's problems with that. But one of the things that he does is whenever there's commercials on, he's always getting up and doing some exercising during the commercials. And so it may only be a few minutes at a time, but then that's all day long or every day.
Yeah, so you're not really watching TV, you're taking breaks from your exercise.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
It's a break between sets.
Yeah. That's one of the things that stuck with me that I learned from Clay, because he's very good on the grippers, on hand grippers and stuff.
Yeah.
And when I was following some of that bad advice early on about, treat them because you're serious, you only train them 1 day a week. And he was like, the first time I ever closed the number 3, I was just sitting at a red light in traffic, and it was just hitting home on that point that you just do this you're doing this all the time. And then,
I think that's what
this is how we get stronger.
Too. Yeah. Is he was working security and he owned a number 2 and and this was way back when it was only 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so he'd take his number 2 with him to work and just squeeze it. And eventually, he started taking his number 3 to work before he could even close it and just messing with it and squeeze the number 2 and just squeezing it. And eventually, like one day during his rounds, he just realized oh, wait, I'm closing it. Wait, that's the 3.
Oh, that's great.
Look at that.
Love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
He's just on a patrol walking and realized, oh man, now I'm closing the 3. Son of a gun. I don't even know when my first close was.
I've always been,
that, right?
I think that's where it's at. And like, I've always been the kind of person that I separate out, like partition off, like work and leisure. And now it's time to relax. And now it's time to work. And I keep sounding like a broken record, but like one of the lessons I learned during the pandemic, because I was reluctant at first to try to bring exercise equipment into this little 1-bedroom apartment where we live. And I just thought I would hate it. And I'll be honest, it was a huge adjustment. It took 6-8 months or so to get used to it. But once I got used to it, this is great. You just walk over here and do a little, like you were talking about, just do a little exercise, go over there and do some work and come back over and do a little exercise. And, and I know a lot of people have made this observation, but for me, it was kind of eye-opening because I never would have thought I would have liked that, but sorry, go ahead, please.
I think I watched a performer that used to do like the unicycle and plate spinning and like juggling stuff all at the same time. And someone asked her like, how do you do all that and train for all that? And how are you doing so many things at once? And I remember her response was, I'm only doing one thing. I'm just performing.
Oh,
just doing one thing. And that was eye-opening to me. I'm like, it is all just one thing. You can think of it as, I'm just flowing through life. It's just one thing. It's just, am I working? My stretching can be while I'm working, and my working out can be while I'm doing this and that and this. And it's all just one thing. It's not multitasking.
Right.
I think when you stop making it a chore and it just becomes part of your life, like, I'm going to do this because it's a commercial break, so I'm going to get in my push-ups or something.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to build a stronger chest, so you're like, commercial breaks. For this football game I want to watch, I'm going to do push-ups, and then I'm going to watch the football game. Then I'm going to do push-ups, then I'm going to watch the football game. Then I'm going to do sit-ups. And it's never like you stop and actually have to think about, I'm going to do a complete workout right now. You just incorporate it with what you're doing. Like, what the hell are you going to do during the football game anyways? Go grab some more cheese and a beer? No, get out and do some push-ups.
Right. It becomes incidental. It's not something you think about too much. And for all this talk about the importance and the usefulness of things like mindfulness and living the moment, we also have overthinking it. And a lot of people overthink it. And once they become aware of it, then they're dreading it. And, what if this and what if that? And if they would have just done it all the time, the energy is spent, you think about it, right? They could have already done a set or whatever.
Exactly. That's why when a lot of people say just start somewhere and do something, it's going to be a lot better than thinking about how to do it perfectly for 3 hours.
Yeah. Totally agree.
I think that's probably out of our 42, I think this is 42nd interview we've done. I think that's the most commonly shared piece of advice we get is just get started.
Yeah. No, you can always stop, or maybe you'll find you want to do something else. Maybe it'll lead you to something else, like we were talking about earlier with the gateway drug, right? The potato. Yeah. No,
so what do you consider your greatest athletic achievement? What's your big one?
You're assuming
you got a big one?
Oh God.
put him on the spot.
No, it's good. It's good. I appreciate it. It's good to make you think, you know. I tell you what, do you mind if I answer this like two different ways? Is that okay?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. I think that the things that I'm thinking about, one thing that one way that I'm thinking about it is like something that even though I really suck at it, I've had to work so hard at it to overcome it. And so this is something that I'm really excited about or proud of or whatever. But it wouldn't be considered a big athletic achievement to a lot of people. But to me, it's a big deal because my baseline was so low. It's so hard for me. I sucked at it so much. And now that would be some of the calisthenics things I've been doing, like the L sits.
Yeah.
Because
I saw the effort you put in on those, man.
Yeah,
that was a journey. Yeah.
I mean, for me, that's a long time. It was 4 years from the time I first started to try to do it to get to the point where I could do it off the floor, you know, and it was these teeny tiny little baby steps, you know, and
that's not easy for anybody to do, especially someone your size. It's crazy. It's impressive.
I mean, I just, you know, like talking about, I saw a lot of other people doing it, and I wanted to try to see them do it, and I set it as like a lifetime goal, and I didn't know if I could ever be able to do it, and as it turns out, it took about 4 years, but then I could do it, you know, and then of course we're not satisfied with that. Of course, then we just want to try to do other things, and so that's probably something that I'm more excited about because I had to work so hard at it. It took so darn long.
The amount of adversity you overcame for it. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So I do believe that. I do think we appreciate it more. But I think that if you talk about things like what other people might think is exciting, it's going to be something totally different. So like something like I don't know if y'all saw this, but you know those some places still have the hex dumbbells, you know, where the heads are shaped like a hex, and it's becoming increasingly rare. But at Santa Cruz Strength, we're fortunate to have some of these hex dumbbells, and so I was able to lift by the face a 60-pound hex dumbbell, and then later a 65-pound hex dumbbell. And so, yeah, I you know, that's the thing where like I think that other people are going to see that and get excited about that, you know. And I got quite a bit of feedback from people on that, so that's why I would say that. But to me, that's really different because that's a different kind of thing. Like I'm glad I did it. I'm glad it fired up some people, but that happened relatively quick for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think it's a great question. I think it's the kind of question we should probably ask ourselves at least maybe on a yearly basis or something, you know, take a step back and take a look. What do you mind if I turn around and ask y'all? Because maybe y'all have a different perspective. Like what are some of the things that y'all are happiest about that y'all have done?
I mean, grip wise, I worked a long time towards closing the 3. So if I was going to say grip wise, I would say closing the 3.
Oh, okay. Do you get officially certified and all that?
I haven't certified on it.
Okay.
I want to get the Mash Monster cert next year. I closed it from parallel, but I've only closed it once, and I was on a really fired up day. And
you closed the 3 though. Congratulations.
So on, I was
That's
so
awesome.
on that day. I knew I needed to come home and try that 3 that day, and I got it. And I was pretty stoked. I haven't closed it since. It was like a month ago, a little over a month ago.
Okay, that's very exciting.
And then other than that, honestly, I would say doing all this stuff without getting injured has been another big thing that I've been really proud to have accomplished. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Adam?
I finally bowled a perfect game. That was kind of cool a while back ago.
You bowled a 300 game?
Yeah.
Did you really?
Grandpa never even did that. That's pretty awesome.
I trained a long time. I was very fortunate to have an amazing coach, and he's bowled like 50 plus 300 games and like 30 plus 800 series.
Wow.
And he coached the Philippines to a Gold Cup and all that, and I became good friends with him. And when I started bowling, it was just fun. And then I met him when he was working at the pro shop when I was like 16, 17, and probably took me 8-9 years. And I mean, I was at the bowling alley 5-6 times a week bowling. It's like 7 or 8 years to finally bowl a perfect game. So that was really cool.
And so many people will never do something like that. Yeah, that's remarkable. I don't think I've ever met anybody that's done that before. Wow. Wow.
That
And
was
what,
fun.
what was it? Was it really quiet? Were there a whole bunch of friends around, or like what was the circumstances like in the bowling alley when it happened?
It was league, and a lot of people actually get kind of quiet for you. That's
Oh, it
you
was
know,
during
they
league.
just,
It
That's
was
what I've
during league
noticed
play. You
too. When
bowled
you
a
hit about
300.
10 strikes, everybody shuts up.
yeah. When
Oh,
you're
wow.
at like the
Wow.
front 7 or 8, they kind of leave you alone and let you do your thing.
Okay.
And I'm not that way, so I was out talking to
Yeah.
Stony and hanging out, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like, "What is he doing?" I'm like, not in my chair, just goofing around, hanging out, and I'm like,
Okay.
when it comes time, I'm going to throw the same exact ball that I throw every time. I already know it's the same routine. It's the same thing every single
Okay.
time. You know, I'm
Okay.
going to get up. I'm going to line up. I'm going to know from just bowling earlier what the lane condition is. So I know what board I'm lining up on. I know how to throw the ball. I know what board I want to hit. That's all I can do.
Wow, man,
Hope the lane
man. I
stays the
just
same and everything goes good.
wow. I can't even. There's been so many times that you're a real bowler. So there's so many times when I talk to people, and they only have like limited experience with bowling. You know, it's kind of the Christmas Catholic, like they've only done it like they do it
Yeah.
once a year or something like this, right? And I would try to talk about this because I would just do it recreationally. So when we would move to a new town, that's one of the things I would like to do is join a bowling league to get to know people because I like to socialize and get to
Yeah.
know people. And then I would routinely get frustrated because a lot of well-meaning people would try to teach you and show you how to bowl better. And I was like, man, even though I appreciate what they're doing, I just kind of wanted to relax and just have fun. And it became not fun for me when I was trying out like 12 different coaching tips, to bowl.
Yeah.
But I had a different mindset than you do, a totally different mindset than you. But I would bring this up with people when I talk about grip, and I would often bring up bowling, and I would say grip reminds them bowling so much because even though you try to do the exact same things and you try to have the similar, you spend all this time, like it always seems like things can go wrong and there's different things that enter into it. It's so complicated. It's just, I feel like it's just so incredibly complicated. But like I said, I don't think I've ever met anybody. That's cool. The 300 game. Wow.
Yeah. It
Wow.
was awesome.
Wow.
I think then, like a couple weeks later, me and Stoney were bowling back and forth just for practice. And we looked up one time and we had 20 strikes in a row or something.
Okay.
Because we were bowling like
Oh my
teams, and
gosh.
like he's like, "Oh, hey, we just threw a perfect game," and then we hit
So
like
how
front.
did it interfere, or did it? Maybe it didn't interfere at all, but I found I couldn't figure out ways to incorporate it into my training without it affecting my other training, especially the grip training. Do you find like it's that way where you have to, or does it not really affect your other training too much, the bowling?
I think if you want to be an elite bowler, you're gonna have to get away from grip training, just because you have to focus so much on certain aspects of how you train. Even weightlifting wise, you have to train to become a bowler. You need certain muscle groups to work better than others as a bowler. You're going to spend a lot of time just bowling on the lanes. And if you're fortunate enough, you have to figure out how to bowl different patterns. And then you are going to want to bowl against left-handed bowlers if you're a right-handed bowler, because when you get into 10, 12 games of bowling and you're bowling against a lefty, he's pushing your oil to the right and you're pushing the oil back to the left, and it's going to affect the lanes will break down differently.
Wow.
Because the path of travel isn't the same with a lefty bowling a righty. You're attacking the lane completely different, and it spaces the oil out and it dries up differently than if everybody's bowling right-handed and you're all kind of rolling the same path. Like,
see,
the
this is what
lane
we're talking
breaks
about.
down
So
much
complicated.
different.
Okay.
So you have to kind of, like, I was fortunate enough to have my coach is left-handed, so I got to bowl against somebody that was lefty and figure out lanes breakdown, because I could find all the right-handers in the world. There's plenty of them, but to find a good left-handed bowler is tough. So luckily I had my coach who was a left-hander.
Okay. Interesting. That's very fascinating.
Yeah. There's a lot more to bowling than people realize. And then you break down like the course of the bowling ball and what they're going to do and when they're going to turn over, if it's going to be late, if it's going to be early.
The closest thing that I have experience-wise to this is when we were competing in Russia, a lot of the Russians didn't use chalk at all in the implements, and a lot of the people from other countries used chalk on the implements. And then we had new rules that would come in that would say, like, you can chalk your hands, but you can't chalk the implement. at one point they would tell us like you can chalk both, but you only have a time limit. And so you're trying to figure out, I'm thinking about this when you're talking about the oil on the lanes. You're trying to figure out how to get that chalk on there in the time you have. And then the referees would come around and wipe it all off for the next lifter, and so this game back and forth with the chalk, but obviously it's really different. But it's just what you're saying, it's everything. It's like so complicated when you start to study it and learn about it. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Interesting stuff.
Yeah. So on the opposite of that aspect, what do you consider your greatest blunder and or injury?
My greatest blunder or injury. I'm just standing up for a second here, kind of move around as we talk about needing to move around and walk, stretch. Well, I guess my greatest one was something that I did when I was younger. When I was about 27, I tore my ACL, and it was really my first big injury, and probably the biggest injury that I ever had of its type. And I was in a gym, and I was in a new gym that I wasn't familiar with, and they had a power rack, and my regular gym didn't have a power rack. So I was very excited to do some different kinds of, basically squats on different depths, right? Different levels of partial squats on different depths, and using the power rack for this. And at this point, I was fortunate. I never really had an injury, and I felt very strong and felt very invincible in general. I think part of it was the attitude of youth, and part of it is just stupidity and everything else, not having that experience and everything. But things were going good, and I kept going up in weight. And I had one set where I did 8 partials at 8:55, and it went really, really smooth. And I thought, yeah, it's going great. Let's just jump up again. And I was stupid. I went up to 9:55 and trying to do some partial squats at that weight. And what happened was from the bottom position, when I was trying to come up, something inside me, like I had a first voice that kind of said, you can't do it. It's not there. Just bail on it. And, rather than listen to that first voice, I listened to the second voice that comes along. It's just like, don't give up on it. Don't give up on it. Don't give up on it. And so I was stubborn as hell, and I kept pushing. And at that moment, my ACL just ripped right in half, Yeah. And I just collapsed on the ground, and it wasn't so much pain as it just like felt weird. Like, of course you hear the noise, and I tried to stand up and I couldn't bear any weight on it. And somebody else in the gym, the stranger, because like I said, this is my first time in that gym, they saw me go down and they came rushing over, and they helped me get to my car. And then luckily I didn't have a stick or anything. I could drive home, The problem was we lived on a second floor of this apartment, so I had to crawl up the steps to get up to the top. Yeah, but then my then partner at the time helped me get back down again. We went to the hospital, and then eventually, after the swelling came down, they diagnosed it. Just what do you think? It's a complete ACL tear. But this was the first of many of these kinds of lessons, where it's like, okay, you need to listen, and it's like trying to figure out. First of all, you got to hear your body talking to you, and then second of all, you got to figure out what it's trying to say. But that stubbornness is probably not going to get you anywhere, and you don't have anything to show for it, and all you've done is hurt yourself now. And there was a awful long time after all the rehab. There was another solid year on top of that before I was just brave enough to get back in the squat rack again. And then after that, you start slowly building up your confidence and doing more. It's like with anything.
Yeah.
And then you lift long enough, and I do think these kind of injuries eventually happen. I ended up having a disc bulge later, and I had to do the same thing with my deadlift, build it up from scratch and start all over again. But each, like we're talking about with learning, right, and growing, each time something like this happens, and then you learn from it. You hope
Absolutely.
you do, right? You hope you don't make the same mistakes again. That's really stupid.
I just learned from you. I don't want to squat 900 pounds. And I like that about grip sport. I don't have to squat 900 pounds to compete.
Learn vicariously.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, so much of the time we have to make our own mistakes, right, and stuff. But sometimes
putting a large horse on your back and standing up with it.
Yeah.
Put a brown bear.
What's your big goal now? What's your next athletic goal?
It's a great question. I don't have like specific numerical goals that are like coming to mind. I think because I think about my team that I coach, my team's asked just as much for myself. And I think at this stage, a lot of it is kind of like what you were saying, like to basically to keep continuing to train. I don't want to get injured because I don't want to miss workouts. And it's just continue to steadily train and continue to make progress on as many areas as I can. And when I feel like some of these things are stabilized enough and we don't have certain kinds of risks associated with contests and stuff, I do want to get back to doing contests, especially grip contests. And I know that, my team, I know that Marianne and Betsy, they're looking forward to doing not just grip contests, but looking forward to doing powerlifting meets and stuff again too. But, I think that's something that's changed in me too. I don't necessarily have some of these specific numerical goals that I used to have before. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to say, you want to get better at everything, you want to improve, part of it could just be like maybe on the spot because I'm thinking about it, maybe if I think about it, I can, send you all a message later. And I suppose I should have thought of some of this stuff. I should have anticipated some of this stuff, but I just thought, well, we'll see what we talk about. We'll see where it goes, Didn't have a lot of preconceived notions about it. And I'm thrilled to be able to talk to you all and hear from other people. Those the only questions that people are asking? They're asking about the 3-inch bars and stuff like that.
What's that?
The questions that other people were asking about were just like things like the 3-inch bars and stuff, huh?
Yeah, and how you got your forearm so massive, mainly.
It's just time. I'll defer back to what Adam Glass said. You just do it long enough. It's going to happen. I used to have little bitty forearms. Like used to be my biceps were really dominant. My forearms are teeny tiny, but now like 8 years plus of training grip and doing more and more volume. Like we said, they're going to get bigger.
There you go.
Should have said you were just born that way.
Yeah,
Sorry, guys.
8 years of
came out with
that'll do
Popeye forearms. Ate plenty of spinach.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see what other people
a year,
do.
honestly.
What's that again?
Adam and I, we've really only been doing grip about a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think? Because I get really excited about watching. This has been the thing, especially to the pandemic, but in general, why I like things like Instagram and stuff is because then you get motivated to do stuff because you see what other people do, right? And so I was wondering for a long time, like who's gonna ever be able to do something like 300 pounds on a Saxon bar? Probably nobody. And Heather and I talked about maybe it's going to be the next generation.
Yeah,
have you seen like Emma is like Jason and Melissa Denji's kid, Emma? And we're
his
like, maybe
kids got some crazy grip lift already under age 10.
Maybe they're going to be the ones that are going to do 300 pounds on Saxon bar. But
then
we're watching people, and we got people like Carl Myers Co. and we got Adam Glass, and we got what is dude's name? He's older too. We did this contest. He's doing the King Kong out in Colorado. Do you all know him, Steve?
Okay.
Steve Millard or somebody? Yeah. Every day we're seeing people doing more and more on the Saxon bar, and I'm like, well, maybe that'll happen in our lifetime. Maybe that'll happen in our lifetime.
I love watching the kids because they don't have any idea of when to stop. I mean, they're lifting so hard that implements are flying out of their hands. They're trying so hard. It's just incredible to see.
Oh, yeah.
Like my daughter has no threshold. She just goes for it. She's lifting like 51 pounds on the golden potato at 7. I'm like, she must weigh 65 pounds, and she's almost lifting that one-handed right now.
Wow.
Like, you're insane.
Wow. Yeah, that's it's there, right, in all of us. And somewhere along the way, we have fear and doubt and stuff tamping us down and holding us back, right?
Yeah, they just go for it. I mean, it's awesome to see them just go all out and try hard and get excited at such a young age. I mean, we've wanted to start the kids group, and there's like 3 or 4 of them that compete at our contest that are all under 12 years old that compete with us.
That's great. That's great. They can't start too early. Just like you can't start too late, you can't start too early.
One that really knows how to train their grip, like will have a correct path of progression, because I think the sport was kind of figuring it out during my entire lifetime.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I hope we never figure it out. I hope we keep searching,
Exactly. For sure.
I was thinking about when you're talking about that thing about the kids and how they just go after it, right? They just attack it. And I was thinking about, when I'm working with a lot of older folks, and
I
mean, we're all like this to a certain level, right? Where a certain extent, you were talking about injuries, I was talking about injuries, and it's like, how can we train right up to the edge? Because we feel like we need to train as hard as possible to get improvements, but not pass over to where we get injured. And
Exactly.
I was thinking about this, and it's like, I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud as we go here, but like, you got to have something like fear because of these things. Like, you need to know like where that edge is, right? So you don't go over it. But at the same time, you don't want to have something like doubt or something, because you don't want to not try to lead right up to where that edge is, right? You do want to go for it, but then in the back of your mind you have something like fear or caution that prevents you from stepping over. And so that's a question I have, is how do we do that? How do we develop, cultivate that kind of attacking, aggressive, going for it, but not spilling over into reckless, crazy wildness where you're risking not just injury, but sloppy, ugly form and things that shouldn't even count. That's not a legit lift.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And what's cool with the kids, I mean, that's no big deal. I'll let them go for it. And then if it's like, oh, well, hold on real quick, let's get the form back, let's do this.
Oh, okay.
That's easy to
Go for
coach
it first.
versus,
I see.
having a mental block, I would say. Getting them to slow down is easier than trying to get somebody over a mental block, for sure, I believe.
Okay. Well, so do you ask them when you're coaching them? Like, do you ask them? Do you say like try to find out what their thinking was, like why it is they did that way, or you just start with more directive, like you're telling them try it this way or try it that way, or how do you do it?
We usually see what they do. I mean, I'll start them at a certain weight and see what they're pulling or how they're pulling, and then we'll give them advice on how to have proper technique, and we have to drop weight so they have that, and then we'll just let them go, like see how much you can do. But I mean, I'll put on, like for my son who's getting better, and his goal is to hit 60 pounds on the golden potato throughout the last 2 or 3 months. I'll have him warm up and tell him how to do certain jumps and weight. And then I say, all right, I'm going to put a weight on here, and I don't want you to know what it is. You're just going to try to pull it off the ground. But you don't know what it is. I know what it is, but you don't get to know what the weight is. And then it'll surprise you what it is.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that way he doesn't get to think about what he's lifting. He just has to think about the lift.
Yeah, just lift it.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So I was thinking about some of this early research that we can't do now because of things like the Institutional Review Board, the IRB. I don't know if y'all have heard about this, but for universities, right, and for hospitals and whatnot. Ever since the Nazi Germany and the Nuremberg trials, we had these things where we said, okay, there's certain things you can do and can't do because of ethical considerations. And so prior to some of this, we would do some of this hypnosis research, and we would hypnotize people. And then inevitably under hypnosis, they could always lift more, whether it be more weight or more reps or whatever, because they didn't have some of these barriers we're talking about.
Exactly.
But of course, we think it's risky too. They could hurt themselves, and they could do other things. And so I'm kind of thinking about this when we're talking about like the surprise, like, oh, focus on your technique, or focus on it. Don't think about the weight, and then you'll find out what it is. And do they like that? They get excited by that and enjoy that kind of lifting? And,
yeah, they both love it.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool.
Because then when they see it, and I always like to give them a little more than what they think they can do. So my son wants to go for like 56. I'll put like 58 on there, and he puts it on there.
So I kind of do a little bit of that. Do a little bit of that depending on who I'm working with, because I have some people that get excited by the numbers, and they get excited by things like the visual of lifting a bigger plate. And there are some people that we know that it intimidates them, and they don't like to know. And so I'll just say, oh, we're just going up a little, but I don't tell them what it is. And I purposely use a bunch of smaller plates. And then afterwards, I'm like, you know what you just did? It was a PR, and you did this and such and such. So depending on the person and their psychology, I do a little bit of that, but it's never just like a complete surprise. Like, I haven't tried that. No, I'm wondering about that.
It's fun.
Okay. Think about it.
So I'm warm up. They clearly know the stack's a little bit bigger. So it's like, obviously it's more than what I just warmed up with, but I don't know.
It's not zero.
Exactly.
There's something there. Yeah. Okay.
Remember, deception's still allowed in science. Okay.
That's
you are allowed to deceive people. That's still okay. That's still in the ethical groundings of okay.
Yeah. And if maybe the ends justifies the means. I mean, maybe the payoff is bigger. A little bit of trickery is justified. If they do it, if they're so happy. They're so happy when they do it.
I think it builds a lot of confidence sometimes, and it's necessary for sure.
Yeah, when someone does something where they didn't think they could do it, and then they've found out that they can do it, is one of the best things I think.
Absolutely.
It's out there. And I had Betsy had some stories, well, one of the things we did was we maxed out the calf raise. The calf raise went up to 500 pounds at our one gym, and we maxed it out. And we had to put extra weight on there. And at this point, you know, she's 82 now. She was probably 79 then, so she's a few years younger. And it was like more than triple her body weight. She did a set of 10 calf raises with this thing. And we're talking about like people in the gym, like somebody stop and would look at her, you know, and the look on their face like, wait a minute, that's not right. That's not right. You know, just really, really questioning, you know, people's notions, and, you know, like what just happened, you know,
thinking
how is
they're in the
that?
Twilight Zone or something.
Yeah, you know.
Is that really an 80-year-old woman I'm looking at, or is this some
Yeah.
wait a second?
Well, it's like we were talking about with the kids. It's the same way, you know. Or you said, you know, when you're watching somebody like, you know, what Adam Glass is doing or what Tanner's doing, and, you know, like they're not small people, you know, and they're doing this stuff, you know, with their bodies in space, or that athlete, you know, the big E that you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
At his size, and he's able to do some stuff that causes people to think differently sometimes about some of this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Which may be the most we can hope for, you know, at least momentarily, at least for a little while. Now, maybe 10 minutes later, they go back to thinking, oh yeah, older people are this, or kids, you know, what do they know? But for a moment, they paused and they had to think about something a little differently.
That's exactly why I got into grip sport, honestly. You know, you see Magnus Samuelsson closing number 4, and you're like, well, yeah, it's Magnus Samuelsson. Yes, you know, whatever. But then you see Tommy Heslop closing number 4, and you go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That guy's 170 pounds. And he just did what Magnus Samuelsson does.
Right.
That's when I realized, well, I'm not going to be a 6'8", 400-pound monster. So see what I can do with my hands.
It's like watching.
Maybe I can do some really cool world's strongest man type stuff with my hands.
It's like watching Devin Hoover bend metal, and you're like, look at that skinny guy.
Yeah, exactly.
What is that?
Devin.
Are you kidding me, Devin? That's insane.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's a lot like Ricardo. We talked about Ricardo earlier. Devin, you couldn't find a better ambassador. I mean, he loves this stuff, loves talking to people, sharing what he knows and what he's learned, and you know, another encyclopedia like Ricardo of information and knowledge and numbers. And we would be lifting, you know, and Clay and I, we'd be struggling, and we couldn't remember, like, you know, we wouldn't have a vague notion of what's a decent lift. And it was always like, just call Uncle Ricardo, call Ricardo up, and right away, you know, he could tell you, you know, the top 9 lifts and who did it and what year and what city were they in and where they did it.
Yeah, absolutely. Ricardo's an amazing source of info.
Yes, he is.
Okay, you know, yeah, that's helpful, you know.
Yeah, he helped us a lot when we did our first comp. We did our first comp with arm lifting, and he was there to coach us the whole way on how to run it. So
he's like, call us anytime you need me. As soon as we called, he's like, ready. All right, what do you guys need?
Yeah.
It's like, I know your competition's going on right now. What's up? So that was awesome.
And then I love the folks that are like the opposite too. You know, like getting to meet Arto. Have you all got to meet Arto yet?
No, all I could think about is the story Adam Glass told me about Arto and the sauna.
Tell me
with Jerome Bloom.
Oh yeah. Tell me if you could. Is there something you can talk about on the air, so to speak?
Yeah, I think you could probably tell it on the air.
We have a.
You'll have to ask Adam. He tells it way better. We'll just put it that way.
That's fine. We can leave it at that. That's fine.
Ask Adam sometime about that story because the way he tells it's just hilarious.
Yeah, you'll get a kick out of it.
Well, Arto is bigger than life. You know, you talk about people are bigger than life, right?
Yep.
And what I love about Arto is he treats everybody the same. And anybody, I don't care who you are, meet him the first time, man, woman, old, young, whatever, he's going to give you the biggest bear hug and pick you way up off the ground and maybe even hold that hug a little too long and just keep hugging you, you know. And he's what you see is what you get. He loves it. He loves lifting. And so in a lot of ways, he's the opposite of somebody like Ricardo, because he couldn't tell you a number he ever did on anything. He just, you know, he's like, Dali, you know, do something, get in there and lift, and you know, and lift it, do something. And that's what it's about to him, you know. It's just like bringing that exuberance and that energy, you know. And so I really appreciate that too, you know. And it's a reminder, you know. We have this saying about the, you know, just pick it up, right? This is
exactly.
On another level, it's just like that. Don't overthink it, as you said. You go in your lift, or what's the worst thing can happen? You're not going to lift it.
Exactly.
You know, you know the stone lifter, the Steve Jack. You all know him?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you read his book of Stones and Strength? You ever come across that and read that?
I have not read it now.
Man, I'm trying to remember. He's talking about on the script of pronunciation. What's that? The one of the famous ones in England, and it looks like INVER. Do you know that stone? It's kind of an oval, big oval shaped stone. It's one of the famous magnet
Oh
stones.
yeah, huh? Yeah, I've seen that one. Yep.
Yeah, and he talks about that stone the first time he met that stone and encountered that stone, and you know he was thinking about it. He's sitting there in the field and he's thinking about it. He's thinking about all the people that had lifted it before or tried to lift it before, and he's becoming really overwhelmed. And he starts to go down this track in his mind is how he tells the story. And he's like, I'm thinking about all the people that have done it and how great they were. And somewhere along the way, he starts to go to like who am I? Who am I? Why do I think I even have a shot at this stone? And why am I even thinking about it? And so he's letting the weight of the world and all these thoughts kind of get to him. And as he's pondering this and puzzling this and feeling this, he said some passerby that's like a local walks by and sees him and just kind of says, hey, better to try and fail than not try at all. And he says, just like a shot just blasts through him at that point. And he just goes down and goes after it and lifts it up. And you know, when I think about that, like I'm simple enough, I still get these chills, you know, whenever I think of that story, because like that's what it takes for some of us. It's like just try it, just go for it, you know. So when Arto says do something, you know, for a lot of us, it's like a lightning bolt, you know, and just gets this burst of energy. And it helps that he's got this big booming voice. You hear him above the crowd shouting for everybody and stuff, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Or so, yeah, I'll ask Adam about his story.
You have to.
Yeah, definitely.
It won't be as good as if I tell it, so I'm gonna let him do it for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's some things in grip that some people would get to and complete a little bit quicker if they weren't such a big thing, like the red nail and the number 3, or you know, like these big intimidating things. And I think some people would probably get them a little quicker if they weren't.
I don't know. It's a good question. That's a great question. Maybe so, huh? Sometimes we get in our own way.
So talking back a little bit before, we were talking about some training methods. So what training methods or techniques have you stumbled upon that have significantly increased your performance, that might not be conventional, or you know, something that somebody would think is normal? So something weird or unconventional that you've found.
What kind of training secrets do you have, basically?
Okay. This is going to be a really hard one, and I'm going to be as honest as I can be. And I don't know if it's going to be useful at all to anybody, but I'll just put it out there. I think when it comes to grip, and I'll just say for myself and the people that I've been fortunate enough to work with, that I don't like routines, and I don't like programs and stuff. And what I like and what I think seems to work for grip is, surprisingly, I'll admit this, very surprising to me, is almost like what we did in bodybuilding, where it's like kind of a muscle confusion thing. When you're doing different things all the time and you're always coming up with new, weird and wacky things to do. And that's what I think works.
So maybe that's why people have 400 grip implements.
Yeah, maybe so.
Maybe so.
Like, you know, I really don't. I honestly don't. I've tried it where I've like programmed it all to hell, and like, you know, like I used to do in powerlifting and had success with in powerlifting, you know, when you're doing all these little micro changes in weights and changes in volume, and it just doesn't seem to work for grip. And what seems to work is doing different things every single workout. And then the other thing is what we talked about, more volume, finding ways to squeeze in more volume. And the one thing that's it might be a third thing, or it might be more along the lines of the volume. But one of the things that I've heard and I've learned from other grip people, and these are people that are really good at this stuff. So people like, you know, Thomas Larson from Norway, he's like one of the best people in the world at doing the wider pinch stuff. And then people like we talked about earlier about, you know, Hari from Finland, Tolinen, and, you know, he's really, really good on hub and really, really good on pinch. And people like Jerome, who's really, really good on key pinch. And what all of these people have said to me in one form or another is that it takes way, way more sets than what a lot of people think. And they would confide in me, and they would say things like, you know, when I'm training something, whether it's like a wider pinch block or like a hub, they're like, it's not the third or fourth lift. sometimes it's like the 30th or the 40th set that I get it on. And that's like how much volume they're doing, how much training they're doing. And they don't quit. They just don't quit. And like a lot of the same kind of cues that we would get on other kinds of strength training were like, okay, it's starting to clearly go downhill. It went from better. Now it's flattening. Now it's going downhill. I just don't think you see those cues on grip. And it always surprises you. It's like, okay, that time it was the 17th set that I got that one. All the other ones were terrible. And if I would have paid attention to the feedback, it would seem like I should stop. But I'm glad I ignored that feedback and I kept going because now I got a PR on this one.
We are experimenting with like sticky spray. Right? You can spray on your hands, so it makes your hands a lot more tacky. So we could lift more.
Oh, so like overloading, kind of overloading in a way, huh? Sticky spray.
So
interesting. Okay.
We'll do that like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 reps on a blob or a some kind of implement, and then all of a sudden the 10th or 11th set you don't have any sticky left and you get it anyways, and you're like, holy crap, how the hell did I just get that without that?
Sticky wears off after a few minutes, and you're still lifting it.
I saw, we were talking about earlier about Alexei the Tank, and what I saw him do at LA Fit Expo was a lot of regular deadlifts on a regular barbell, including with straps, and he went way heavier than what his axle deadlift was, and he did some really heavy sets leading up to it. And then he went out there and did an axle deadlift and broke a bunch of records, but yet it was hundreds of pounds lighter than what he was just doing on that. So that's kind of a similar technique, I think, to what you're talking about. I don't think that I have anything like that I've tried. Jerome Bloom is one that taught me about holds. I never did holds at all until about 2 years ago. And Jerome has always done a lot of holds. And a lot of the European lifters from places like, well, I want to say like Austria, like, do y'all know Serco and Patricia Luxner?
Yeah.
Y'all know those two?
Yeah.
And a lot of those people from that neck of the woods, they do a lot of holds. And in some of the contests, some of those contests in their neck of the woods, they do holds as part of the contest.
Yeah, she brings out a lot of challenges that are holds.
Yes, exactly. You got it. You got it. And Maria, Maria from Finland, and she's done some world record-setting holds on some, not just things like Jerome does, the key pinch, but some really thin pinch with the whole hand, like a 1/4 of an inch or something, and pinching out for a minute. And so that's something that I've started to do the last couple of years, is longer holds. And I think that might be something that does seem to help, or does seem to carry over a little, is holds, and then doing more volume than you think.
I'll go back to my Hercules holds with weird implements, because I was doing that for a while, like golden potato Hercules holds.
He's really good at static holds. Can beat some of the strongest gripsters, like inch lifters and whatnot. He can beat them by 20 seconds in static holds.
Wow. Okay.
Just keep holding it. What's wrong with you? The hell are you gonna let that go?
I don't know. Like, maybe the problem is it's so complicated. Maybe it helps you improve, but it's a year down the line. Maybe the reason that you don't know if it improves is because you're looking at a week or two or a month later. Maybe it's helping you, but it's further down the line. You can't tell. So I'm not sure, but I have been doing more holds, and I have been doing a lot more volume than you might think. And I'm just where I'm kind of stuck is trying to figure out logistically how to do it all, because as I get more and more interested, not just in all these grip things, but other things like the calisthenics and other kinds of training, it's like we only have 7 days in the week. We only have 24 hours in a day, and we do need some recovery. And how do we get it all in? So one of the bigger changes that I've been making, and partly it's because of things like the hernias, and partly it's because of things like training at home during the pandemic and having less access to equipment. But part of it is just I've been finding positive changes in some of these other things. Is I've been training more frequently, and like, instead of training really hard like 5 days a week, I've been training pretty much 7 days a week, but I haven't been having as much high intensity stuff. I've been doing more moderate intensity stuff, and then more and more volume and things like this, but training every single day. And a lot of it is just so I can get to all the things that I want to do, but also so that I don't have as many DOMS related side effects. So I can train again. So I can do another session.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know, maybe it's just where I am right now in my life and my body, my age, my body, the way it is in my career. I'm not sure if it would work for somebody else, but I can say that I've been experiencing some benefits from doing that. I think it's worth looking into.
I think that's a huge key.
I've heard that on grip is volume scale.
Have you?
And finding what works for you is huge. I mean, like you said, something that works for you might not work for me or somebody else, but you could really find what works for you, and you could clearly see improvements coming. Just keep doing it.
Just keep doing it. And some of the people that really, really specialize, we talked a lot about Jerome, but like you all talked to Gil. I know you all talked to Gil Goodman, and he's done a lot with Hubban and with Pension.
Yes.
And did he kind of say the same thing? Did he say a lot of volume and
yes,
and
he
every
did. He
every
said he did
day?
a ton of volume on his pinch when he got into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like more than once a day, or just once a day every day, or what?
He said he was in there every day. So I don't know if it's more than once a day, but he said he was in there every day. Adam Glass reflects the same thing. He says, yeah, you can pull, if your deadlift's 600 pounds, you can pull 400 on the axle every single day. So he suggested to us, like, get our main body lifts up. Cause like my axle lift is like about 300 pounds and my deadlift's about 400 pounds. So they're still a little close. And I'd like to get my deadlift to like 500 if my axle's 300 or 600 if my axle's 400 and, be able to do more volume. But with all you've learned and all this stuff and knowledge you have now, what would you do different if you started your training over today? So you're just 20 years old, all of a sudden you're starting to train over.
It's a great question. I think that one of the things that I would have, and I hope it's still a possibility. My father is still alive, and he still practices the martial arts. And I hope at some point, if we live closer to him, I can study some more martial arts with him. And I think one of the things I would have done differently is try to do that, if not full on, have that be a pretty big part of my training. And I think it would have carried over to a lot of things. And I would have done a lot more of what we now call mobility and flexibility work all throughout. I used to just always do it I would do it every single workout, but I would only do it for about 15, 20 minutes right before the start of the workout. And I think I would do it more during the day. I don't think I would have changed some of the things I did do though. I had years and years at a time where I would focus on a single power lift and just do like a whole workouts of squats or deadlifts or bench. And I really feel like there's a lot of benefit you could have from that longer term. And so I don't think I would have changed that. And I think that we're not able to separate out what just happens from the aging process to our bodies and our joints over time versus specific training related things, whether they be positive adaptations or negative adaptations. I still think we have a hard time separating that out. So I'm not ready to say I wouldn't have done certain things certain ways. So it's more just like I think I missed out on not doing some of those things that I see now as useful, things like the martial arts and the more stretching. But if I could have figured it out, I would have done just as much of the powerlifting, and I would have done just as much. I would have done grip earlier.
First thing I got back into was martial arts after I did after I did so much college. I sat on my butt for 10 years in college, just forever.
Okay.
But after I finished up school, that was the first thing I did was get back into. I started got back into Tai Chi first and did that for like 6 months before I even considered getting into martial arts training program because I knew my body was wrecked for just sitting so long.
Yeah.
I deliberately got a desk job where I would be sitting for 8 hours so that I could do my school while sitting for 8 hours and then go home and sit for another 6 hours and continue doing the school that I couldn't finish during the 8-hour work.
Yeah.
And man, it wrecked me. Yeah, for sure.
And that's the way, that's how I would work too, was in a sitting position. And a lot of people are good about moving around and they think and they learn while they're moving around, but then some of us do just kind of sit there and slumped over. And so, so you recognize it now. You've made those choices and then it set the wheels in motion for all this other stuff and made it harder. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I always say after having those kind of jobs for so long, once I started being a strength coach and being a personal trainer and doing these jobs, I was so appreciative that I did get to move around all day long as part of my job. And as hard as some of those jobs I had, like waiting tables were, and they were hard on like the bottoms of your feet and things, at least you got to move around and you weren't just sitting still or standing.
Yeah, I look back on those like patrolling security jobs that I had and I'm like, wow, that was really nice to walk for 45 minutes every hour and sit down for 5 and then walk again. That was actually I felt really good then.
Yeah. Better than just sitting for sure.
So what is the most important piece in your home gym and why?
Well, that's a good one. He has a small home gym.
Okay, so I'm going to assume you mean something other than, so because you say home gym, like like if you had things at home, because the reason I ask it that way is because like I'd spend more time just on the floor doing things just on the floor than anything else probably. And so but anybody could have access to the floor, and that's part of the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
And I've
So,
said that padding on your floor is one of the best things
Yeah,
you can
some
have.
people do say
Yeah.
padding on your floor so you can do all kinds of body weight exercise and stretching. That could be your most important pieces.
Man, so are we talking about exercise in general? Are we going to talk about grip too, or both, or what?
Whatever you want to do. General health, grip, powerlifting,
Okay.
stuff. It don't matter.
Man. Okay. All right. Let me stand and have a quick little look here. I got to think about that question.
Could be that rope back there.
Yeah, you can see that one, huh? Yeah, okay, this is so hard for me because I guess what I would say is probably something like that chin up bar. But that's if I can also say the bands. If I could say the resistance bands that help you, because what I had to do when we started the pandemic, and I was a lot heavier because of the kind of training and the kind of things I was doing then. I could only use the bar for a lot of the exercises if I had the bands.
Okay. Gotcha.
And what's happened over the course of a couple of years is I'm just now at the point where I can do things like a couple reps of pull-ups and chin-ups, and I can do some things like the tucked holds and stuff with my body weight, but after the hour-long warm-up where I'm still using the bands and stuff. So if I'm allowed to say the bands, then I would say probably, those bars, because of the versatility and all the things that I can do beyond the floor, and a lot of it is just it's time and trying to fit it all in, and a lot of it is like my own creativity. If I get like a spark and I can come up with something more creative, then I can do all kinds of things on a bench or with very little equipment. But a lot of times I think I'm just intellectually, creatively lazy. I'm not doing as much as I could do,
Yeah.
But I think if we go to grip stuff, I got to say the Saxon bar for grip.
Yeah.
Because there's no limit to the number of exercises and different kinds of things you can do on a Saxon bar. And to the extent, because I've already made that play for saying that I doubt there's very much carryover to a lot of things, and that's why we got to train on all these different kind of things. But to the extent that there is a bit of carryover, I think there's hands down more carryover from Saxon bar training than any other thing out there.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if y'all agree or if that jives anything that y'all have seen. I know some people said the same for Axel or various other things.
We narrowed our grip training down to, for a while, just like wrist curl type stuff, Axel and Saxon bar. So it's really hard for us to say like which one of those three really pushed it, but we would just use 2-inch Saxon bar, 2-inch Axel.
Oh, so you said I'm just going to only use that for a certain amount of time?
Yeah, for a certain amount of time, we only use that just to get our overall hand strength up, and we made some big gains doing that.
Yeah, we needed to get stronger first before we could even decide
how long of a period did y'all do that for?
I don't know, maybe like 6 months.
I was going to say, probably about 6 months.
Yeah.
Good.
And that got us some pretty big gains for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not quite sure what's happening or why that is, but I've experienced that. It feels like that. It's the best I can say. It's like there's
some of the stuff some of the accomplishments we got that were completely unrelated were during that time, like hubbing a 45, lifting the half 85-pound blob, closing the number 3. All those happened during that time period.
Yeah, just training those. And then we'd go mess around with other implements. Like, wow, we completely increased what we used to be able to do without ever training it.
Oh, okay, that's great. That's very exciting. Exciting. Let's see. How about this one? I'll throw another one out there. The more we talk, I'm starting to think about some other things. So I think that sometimes there's an order effect. Like if you decide, like let's say you go in a different direction and you say in the same workout, I'm going to do multiple things. I do think that some of the time there's an order effect. And so what I found is that if I do pinching type things, and this is where it doesn't seem to matter if it's square pinching like a Saxon bar or a block, or pinching like a hub, If I can do pinching first and then do thick bar or rolling handle stuff later in the workout, I feel like it either helps me lock in on the thick bar and the rolling handles better, or if it's going to interfere, it's going to interfere less with the thick bar than if I do it in the opposite order.
Oh, I completely agree. I feel
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
if I do Saxon first,
Yeah.
I could usually PR on a Saxon and the axle. But if I do axle first,
Then
my
your pinch
Saxon,
is gone.
my Saxon's
Yeah,
shot.
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't
Y'all knows
pinch
that
the
too,
Saxon
huh?
bar after doing
It's
an
like you're
axle
just
very
too
well.
fatigued overall,
on the
right?
Saxon, you'll get a good lift on the axle, and oftentimes just a light warm up before the Saxon will help you get the PR on the Saxon.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Okay. So I'm
least for
glad
me,
to hear
yeah.
that. It's
Yeah,
nice to
same
hear
with me
that
too.
consistency with other people. Yeah, and I've experienced that too with my team when I work with Betsy and Marianne. And if they're struggling with something like locking in on something, then sometimes we'll do things like not just regular deeper hub like an iron mine, but we'll do some of the shallow hub, either the shallow hub devices or some plate hubs if we're lucky that are shallow. And then just engaging those fingertips and getting those involved. Sometimes it helps on these, things like Rolling Thunder, Country Crush, whatever, when it's really rolly, but I'm glad to hear that others have had that's similar experience. That's encouraging.
Yeah, I think it's just the contact. The pinch is a lot of contact, so I think it just fires up more of the hand.
Yeah,
gets it ready for more.
What about this one? I've noticed that if I'm really good on something like a one-handed Saxon bar pinch, like let's say one hand is better than the other, maybe lefty is better than righty on a one-handed Saxon bar pinch. But if I change to something like just doing a two-handed or three-handed, four-handed Saxon bar pinch with one hand, then suddenly that other hand might be better than the one that's usually crappy on it might be better than the other hand. Have you all noticed that? Have you tried that out?
Yeah, I've definitely experimented with a lot of the two-finger and one-finger pinch stuff.
Yeah, same thing with like a hub, right?
And
you might have one hand that's better on the whole hand for the hub, but you start doing just individual fingers, the other hand could be better than that other hand.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I've done some weird research on that. There's something in our brain that happens that fires up the weaker hand that's normally weaker when the stronger hand starts to get weaker.
Okay.
So there is something mentally that goes on there. It's a survival thing. It sends more power to the other side for some reason.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a little bit in the performance psychology.
Yeah, I couldn't
sure about
that happened at King Kong. I couldn't finish all the lifts right-handed, so I had to do a little bighorn left-handed, and I think I pulled the PR left-handed over my right hand that I would normally.
Great, that's
and I outbeat my right hand with my left hand because if it was fresh, I beat my right hand with my left.
Now, does that depend on the grip implement, or is that generally the case for you?
I usually won't.
Almost always the case.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll always beat my right hand PR, but if my right hand's dead, my left hand will definitely PR.
Be up there. Yeah, it'll be very high. It'll be close to his right hand.
Because I've seen it. I've seen it both ways. Like some people generally have one hand that does better than the other, and then there's a lot of us, and I put myself in this camp where it just flat out depends on the event. Some of the events I tend to always be better with one hand or the other. Yeah. Interesting.
I'm starting to learn that the more I actually do train with both hands, that my left hand's going to get better at some implements than my right hand will. So
I think
and then
another thing to consider is how well you can control your left hand. Like my left hand, I can't write my name with or control it worth a crap. It's just flailing around out there, really disconnected. But so you think of a lift that doesn't take like a lot of dexterity or like good hand placement. So when my right hand starts to fail, I can do like a penny pinch with my left hand that'll be just about as high as I can do a penny pinch with my right hand. But if I tried to do a more complicated lift, like a horn lift or like a specific block type pinch where I have to get my hand a very specific way, it probably wouldn't be as high with my left.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
There's some of that there too.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But yeah, I think you're tapping into the fight or flight a little bit at that
point.
And
you keep trying. It sounds like
right hand is dead.
You're working them both, right?
Yeah.
You're not giving up on it. You're just like saying this is what you notice. You're trying, because I think there can be a psychology where like if you tend to do better with one hand or the other, you might just train that one that you do better on and say, well, this one's not so good anyway. But if you're like the student and you're wanting to learn or interested, maybe you keep on training that other one and then you just notice these things or learn things, trying to figure out what's the basis for it, right? Why is it doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I said, I think it has to do with fight or flight. Your body goes, "Oh, this hand's dead, so there's something wrong going on because that's your power hand." So it just gives the aid to the other hand.
Yeah, and again, when this happens, we might try to avoid injuries, but sometimes it happens. We've seen like our colleagues, right? Jason Denji recently got that injury, but luckily with our sport, he's able to keep training that other hand all the time. So that's another benefit of what we do, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my right hand was so dead from Kong that I finished Little Bighorn left-handed, and then decided to do arm wrestling. So I arm wrestled left-handed the whole time, and then I think I killed it for like 6 days. My left hand forearm was going to fall off. It didn't feel bad then, but I was like, the next couple days, I'm like, what did I do?
Yeah, we've been beat up this week. We both jumped into arm wrestling a little bit, and in Texas, that was fun.
That's on my list. That's been on my list for a long time. I have not tried it. And I got close when Clay lived here because he was starting to get interested too. I think he even bought a table. And so then it was a matter of trying to find a good coach, because I don't want to just jump into it. I certainly don't want to, get hurt or do something else, do something stupid. So it's still on my list. So what did y'all think? What was your first experience? Was a good one?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, arm wrestling is a whole different world, man. Yeah, the forces that they deal with are crazy.
Yeah. And we had Tommy Jennings there, who's an awesome arm wrestler coaching us. Yeah. So we had a great coach, and then obviously Adam and Tanner both. So
they've been doing it a while, those two, or they knew how to too?
Yeah, they've been doing it a while. I know Adam's been into it for a while. So and I know Tommy Jennings has been doing it a long, long time and is fantastic at it. So
and we do have some overlap too. There's folks that do both. Like Mr. King Kong himself, right? Eric does both, and some people that started arm wrestling that come over to grip. I'm struggling to remember the guy's name. Oh, well, anyway, y'all know there's a lot of people out there that do this, just like with the rock climbing and stuff. Yeah. All good stuff. Well, I hope to do it at some point.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, before we let you go, is there any questions you have for us or anything you want to know about Couch Potato Strong or any shout outs you want to make or anything like that?
I guess I just kind of like to hear a little bit more about what y'all are trying to do. Like, I know it's hard, right? Because if you're like me with my Team SAS, you could probably talk about it forever, and it can be hard to like try to sum it up. I would like to mention more people, but the problem I'm having is like y'all, I follow a lot of people on Instagram, like 1,000 people, and I'm sure there's going to be people I'm going to forget.
Oh yeah,
they're going to be mad or whatever.
Yeah, I think during this pandemic, grip's just a wonderful gateway drug into health and happiness. It's easy to start at home. It's easy if you have just a little bit of space to do it. And once you start doing it and you get an itch for it, then you're like, oh, well, if my arm was a little stronger, I could grip better. Oh, I feel it in my back. Maybe if my back was a little stronger, I could lift a little more.
Right? Everything. And every kind of activity that we do in our life.
Gets the head going, gets the brain turning, and you start going, well. And so, a couple years down the road, you're healthy everywhere just to be able to squeeze this little thing a little harder. And look what it did for your life.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes. And we want to bring that happiness and let people know they can start anywhere. Doesn't matter where you're at. Just start doing it. Get healthy.
Start doing it.
Really the best thing you can do
right? We'll start somewhere.
For yourself in your life is to just get in better shape.
Yep.
It'll help you everywhere and it can't harm you.
So we just thought here in the Northwest, grip's a gateway to it.
And the biggest serendipity about it has just been the community and the nice people we've been able to meet and the people we've been able to talk to and travel to and hang out with. And it's just incredible.
That's another thing. If you jump into powerlifting as a newbie or something, you'll soon get, pushed out by the community. Sometimes, it's not as friendly. Grip
I had a lot of
friendly.
I know exactly what you're saying. I've had a lot of mixed experiences. There's been some folks, in fairness, that are very welcoming and some that it's very, very competitive.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what you're saying, and I do see grip as being a lot different. I do see, like we've been talking about all along, all this encouragement, all this camaraderie, and you start naming any town or any country, and there's like 100 names you could throw out there of people that we all see and follow. They're doing this stuff. And I agree.
Yeah, it's a neat hodgepodge of nerds, different people from different walks of life, like people that failed at this sport or decided to try this and got injured and said, well, I'll just do this, or just people that wanted strong hands just for whatever reason.
Yeah.
The
only sport and the only community I've met that every single elite athlete in the sport is more than happy to invite you to their house or their gym, or like, if you're ever in this area, make sure you come see me.
Yeah.
Compared to any other sport or anything I've ever done, elite athletes are so happy for you to come over, hang out, eat dinner, and train with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that spirit, right? That spirit, whatever that is, generosity or just whatever it is. They're just eager. They want the community to grow, I guess, but they love it and they want other people to do it too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, because
exactly. It's
they
very
love
good
it. They love it
energy.
so much. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
The only thing I would say is fist bump people, and it's not just because of the pandemic and spreading germs, but because you got so many people with strong hands. You don't want to
Yeah.
be doing handshakes. It's like you could do a virtual one. There's many other things we can do. But a handshake is maybe not something that you want to do in a group community.
Yeah. So I'll
True,
tear your
they'll
hand
come in a
up
little
for
hot,
sure.
Definitely.
My hand's not a number 3 gripper, man.
No, I know. You just never know, right? Yeah. No, I don't think anybody would intentionally. I don't think intentionally break your bones. But you never know. I don't know. You could speak to strongman because some of our grip contests were some strongmen around, and that lot, they might be a different lot. I don't know. Would they be the type to like try to crush your hand? Or,
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
No, the strongmen are pretty cool that we've met.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe there might be a couple arm wrestlers out there that would want to come in a little strong. They're going to be at the table going head to head anyway.
Bodybuilders.
Yeah, so it's already started, right? It's already
it's already started.
Part of the pre.
Yeah, exactly. That's the pre-game right
it's
there.
Arnold, it's like Arnold trying to psych people out, or
Yeah. I think in grip, enough guys know that it doesn't matter what your handshake is like because it's so weird that you have no idea what they're going to wind up doing when they step up to the bar.
You don't.
No.
Well said. You don't know.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Some guys can crush some monster grippers, and they may have a strong handshake, but then they may get on some implement and struggle with it just because their wrist isn't there or whatever else.
Absolutely. So we go back to that idea, right? Do we want to be generalists? We want to be good on a lot of different things, or do we want to be a specialist?
Yep.
It's a hard question. I think it's good to be good at all these things. Like you said, try to seek better health and looking at a broader view. But,
I think it's important to have the option. I have 7.5 inch hands. If my hands were much smaller, I would definitely be a hub specialist or something like that.
Okay.
I feel like with my hand size at 7.5, I can do most everything. But guys below that, they're probably going to need to specialize in something. They're probably not going to get the inch. They're probably not going to get the blob. I mean, it's just hand size definitely matters in some of the things that are out there.
I'm not sure I agree. I don't know. I'm not gonna say I disagree, but I'm not sure I agree. Maybe it's like we have this saying like the correct answer is always it depends. Maybe it just depends on what we're talking about,
Yep.
Maybe there are certain things where they can't, and maybe it's just a question, like we said, of training longer, training differently, and then they can do these things,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Sometimes we are limited at the beginning and we think we can't do things and we don't pursue it, I think it's a good question though, and I hope we continue to try different things and don't just say, "Oh, I'm good at this. I'm not going to do that."
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, there has been a handful of guys that have done it. There's definitely been guys with smaller than 7.5 inch hands that have lifted the blob, so they're out there.
Oh yeah.
It's just it's definitely definitely a disadvantage to go for that if your hand size is a certain way. It doesn't mean
some of
there's
these
not a million
things are
other
just
things you can monster grip.
so tricky. Like I was thinking about that. What was that one that Gil had? That one where you can wrap your. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank on it. You can wrap your hands around it, but only partly, and then there's a flat piece. Tips tester. Yeah. And something like this, Julia. Y'all know Julia from
this guy right here.
Julia kind of lifts. Yeah, that one. We were talking one day, and it's just like, it's like one of these conversations you have in the coffee shop that you have in the gym where you're talking about these kind of issues like hand size and stuff. And Julia went in the opposite direction about it because she's got little bitty hands, and she was saying, well, I think it's actually an advantage to have smaller hands because you can have more of your hand in surface contact with it.
On some implements, I absolutely agree. The golden potato does not appeal to people that have over 7.5 inch hands. They have to go to a crimp grip.
Yeah.
So coincidentally, the guy that has the world record on the golden potato has 7.5 inch hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eddie's also
But-
enormous, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, but then just something like Hub, you might think, well, maybe it's better to have a smaller hand, but then you got people with some enormous hands doing fantastic stuff on a Hub,
Yep.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and the
think
same thing you got.
I'm leery if I don't want to think about those things or talk about those things too much, because I think that it will keep some people from doing it. I would like to, like what y'all were saying, I like to have more people trying more things. But I guess
Yeah, the
it's
thing is,
inevitable. Maybe we're gonna talk
everybody,
about something.
you come up with something to say, oh, well, I can't do that because my hands are this size. But then you'll find that somebody has done it. You say, oh, I'm
okay.
under
I see what you're
150
saying.
pounds. I can't lift the inch. Well, Eves did it
Yeah.
at 143.
Right, right.
It's wild. There's always someone that does it. It may take longer with smaller hands, and it may not be the best thing for you to choose. Like if I was going to choose something to go for with small hands, it would probably be Hub versus Blob. Doesn't mean it hasn't been done. There's guys with 7.5-inch hands that toss the blob from hand to hand.
So it's just
amazing.
a qualifier. It might take you longer. You might have to go about differently, but you might be good if you.
But you'll get there. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, like that.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. All right. Well, we don't have any questions for you.
Yeah, no.
Nice chatting with you.
Yeah, we'll talk some more. Nice chatting with y'all. Appreciate it.
Definitely.
Thanks again. Like we said, thanks again for everything y'all are doing for the community, and hopefully we'll keep growing it and keep the excitement going, and encourage and motivate each other. Right.
Absolutely, for sure.
Thanks very much, y'all. Good to talk to you.
Have a good
Take
night.
care.
We'll
Enjoy the rest
definitely
of your
Have a
talk
good
soon.
evening, a good weekend. Yeah, thanks
Absolutely.
again. Thank you.